Welcome! You are listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. I'm Chris, and as ever, I'm joined by my good friend Clem.
Hi, everybody. It's been a long time.
And Clem, since Wiki Dave told me it was creepy when I say that, I'm really going to lean into the Clem.
I mean, isn't that what you do, right? Like you just push it a bit forward and then it stops being creepy and it starts being funny?
At some point, I believe it will. I've just got to keep pushing on, you know? Don't stop for any reason.
At some point, you get known for something, and that becomes your thing, and that's how it is, right? So,
wait a minute. Is this the thing I want to be known for? Maybe not. Oh, this is a minefield.
Yeah, we don't choose, sadly.
We don't choose. Other people choose for us. So Clem, apologies, dear listener. This episode's going out a little bit later due to, just general life happening, and it's now. It's a nice problem to have, but now we've got a few episodes in the schedule. So this is probably going to get pushed back. So, dear listener, we're recording this just before Christmas, but we wanted to get one final episode out for the year, didn't we, Clem?
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be an episode, a monthly episode, and so, supposedly you record one per month, and with life being what it is in December, it's always hard. But we finally made it. Barely didn't. Sorry about that once more. But here we are. And now we have a bit of time to chat about toy soldiers and the latest Mantic things from the Mantic universe, right?
Perfect. And Gerry might drop in unexpectedly on us, but unfortunately no Mark this month, I believe. So Clem, it's just the old classic for now. Just the two of us as it started.
That's how it is. And it feels like kind of a theme, right? Like people drop in later, maybe not. It's kind of a MUP thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's like having a party, you know? They might pop in later, they might not. It's just the pure excitement. Hey, Clem, speaking of the MUP thing. So one thing I just wanted to talk about at the top of the show is, Clem, so I would say probably for the last year, you and I have been talking and often going in circles about the sound quality of the show and how we could improve it, because although we joke around about it, obviously no one wants a podcast that doesn't sound nice in the listener's ears. So we finally, after much sort of umming and ahhing, we finally made a decision. So it's sort of a good news, bad news kind of a situation, dear listener. So we've found a way to improve the sound quality, because the hardware we have is all fine. We're using mics, we're using headphones, etc. But what we've been using previously, and I won't go into boring details, is we've been using a single source recording, which means that all of the audio is in one package. And if we want to try and make that sound nicer, if we have to do something, tweak the whole of the audio, whereas now we've got a multi-channel recording, which means that, let's say for example, if my mic sounds a little bit dodgy, Fred in editing can adjust my mic and leave everyone else unchanged. And it may sound like a small thing, but actually you may have noticed the last couple of episodes the sound quality is much better, and it's a long boring story short, but the bad news is that to get this level of quality, it is a subscription service, so it is, obviously there is a charge associated with it. So we have created a Patreon, Clem, to cover our costs initially, and then if there's any money left over, obviously we're going to put it back into the show and try and do really nice things. So, dear listener, if you listen to this, you enjoy MUP, please give us a 5-star review where you listen to this. It does make a big difference. And if you can spare it, just chuck us a couple of bucks a month. It would be greatly appreciated, and all the money will go back in the show. And I do want to mention this, that I am not handling the money, not because I'm corrupt, although I joke about being corrupt, but because I'm disorganised. So somebody who is far more organised than me is handling the money. So I actually, to be honest, the idea of
obviously not me.
Yeah, not Clem. But the idea of actually, do you know what? It was just the idea of having to organise this and be responsible was quite stressful for me. So that slowed this whole thing down. So finding someone else to take this off my shoulders has made a big been a big help. So, dear listener, Mantic Universe podcast, we're on Patreon. If you can spare a couple of bucks a month, we would greatly appreciate it, and it does make the show better, Clem.
Well, we'll still say the same things. It's just you'll hear it slightly better, hopefully. Now, the sound quality is indeed better, and I know there's at least one Patreon supporter because I've signed up for it, and we'll see from there. I mean, it's just. it's not a big deal. It's just trying to split the cost a little bit between all the people who participate and the most, cheerful listeners who can afford it. And we'll keep doing what we do anyway. And we're thankful if you joined, but you don't have to.
Yeah, that's fair. Thanks, mate. Super. So, I believe Gerry may have just joined. Gerry?
Ho, ho, holy moly.
How are you, kind sir?
I'm grand.
Gerry, the good news is... Busy man. Oh, of course, always. Busy, important man. The good news is, Gerry, because of, let's call him Blem, as timekeep, we've basically
technical difficulties. It's called technical difficulties, Chris.
Timekeeping and then technical difficulties. We've pretty much only just started the show now, so there will be bits where I think we have to move forward a little bit faster than normal.
Okay.
But Gerry, you've joined at a good time, my friend.
I'm glad to hear it. Distracted by time zones.
Yeah, I still get really confused. Yeah, no problem, buddy. Super. So, and one other thing I wanted to mention before we get into Mantic news is a good example is Wiki Dave. So, Wiki Dave came on board MUP probably about 6 months ago. And initially, the idea was he would come in and talk about wiki stuff, would you believe? So, he'd talk about lore, he'd talk about the wiki website, just do a little bit now and again. But it seems like Wiki Dave likes making podcasts. So he's come in and he's made a ton of episodes with Mark, obviously lore-based, but he's now doing the Halo shows. So, dear listener, if you're listening to this and you love playing The Walking Dead, for example, or other Mantic games that we don't cover very often, you love playing Armada, get in touch with the show, manticuniversepodcast@gmail.com, and the show has always been about the community. Really, it's not really about us as people. It's just about these fun games and the people that play them. So if you would be interested in getting involved, just get in touch, guys. And honestly, the barrier is very low, right, Clem?
I mean, you and I are doing it, so that's not very
exactly.
high. I have to say, I love listening to MUP episodes that happen without any of my involvement.
Isn't it luxury? Cool. Yeah, absolute luxury. Yes, when I just have to upload them, it's sweet content, and I didn't have to edit it or anything. There we go. Gerry, have you seen we've got Halo content coming out that I'm not making, which is great.
Yeah, I have seen that. It's been interesting because I haven't paid any attention to Halo since the first Halo game, and then obviously the Mantic game arrived, and a lot of the guys I work with are big Halo fans from whatever the PvP game is that they've played that it's based on. So yeah, it's nice to see that there's some Halo stuff coming down the pipeline, because I think that's a game that's got legs for Mantic and bringing in new people. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yes, absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, guys. Right, we've done our shilling, Gerry. So we just started a Patreon. So I've just told the dear listeners all about that. We've just asked people to make content for us. I mean, it's really, this really is the industry to be in, isn't it? It's just,
yes.
Ask for money and do the work for us. I mean, It's perfect.
It's a brave new world if you can get it.
Yeah, exactly. Right, guys. So today, let's do the welcome and on the menu, which I always get wrong. So we're going to be doing our introduction. We're going to be talking about our Warpath Firefight and Dead Zone, and probably a little bit of Halo 2. Our Panathor Kings of War. Panalore, I'm really sorry, guys. We're going to have to, due to time reasons, unless Gerry has something very interesting he can tell us on the spot. And Panalore was so good last month, Clem. Yeah. Hey, but Gerry, at least keep the listener interested. Keep them listening. We need to come on.
Surprise! Listen for another 2 hours, and maybe a Panalore will come up.
Exactly, Clem. Hour 2 will shock you, or something. What do we have to? We need the clickbait. List of top 10. Yeah, listicles. There we go.
You won't believe how little they know.
Yes. And they're asking us for money. What a bloody cheek. Exactly. Perfect, guys. And yes, so Panalore, maybe we have something, dear listener. You'll have to listen on to. It's very exciting. Yes, listener questions. Just a couple of listener questions this month. Topic of the month. I was really looking forward to a Gerry rant, but I think, Gerry, we're going to talk a little bit about the Mantic Vault, if that piques your interest. But I'm very happy to also have Gerry rant. What could be finer for a title?
It could go either way.
It could go either way. Dear listener, this section will shock you. Please listen on. And then we'll wrap up the show. Good stuff, guys. Fantastic. So, welcome on the menu, guys. Is this where we are? No, we're at Mantic News. Hooray! Perfect. See, just to prove, dear listener, the sound quality will be getting better. The competence and quality will remain exactly at the sweet spot. Meaning,
let's be fair. It's the end of the year. We've all been running around and stressed and sick and so on and so forth. So let's that's how it is.
Oh, thanks, Clem.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
self-care. No, how is it?
Let's be nice to ourselves. Yes,
exactly.
I don't know how to feel about this, Clem. Normally, you're sticking the knife in, so I'm not sure. Is this somehow worse when you're being nice? If you're being nice to me, how bad have things got?
No, but exactly. Well, if you really want to stick the knife, well, you need to soften up things before. But anyway.
Yeah, it was like when. Do you remember when Clash of Kings, was it last couple of years ago, when me and Mark started on the top table just because we make up, and there was we were streamed on YouTube, and there was a gang of people that actually know how to play the game watching our game, and for quite a long part, I can't rewatch that video because for quite a long part they're like, what is Chris doing? And at some point, I think Matt Croger jumps in to defend me and says, well, Chris, to be fair, is quite a casual player. And if Matt Croger is stepping in to defend me, something has gone terribly wrong, because he's if all is fine, he would be making fun of me. But if he's being nice, something has gone
fire.
Badly.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really, really bad at this game, guys, and that's okay. So, guys, talk to me about advent calendars.
Yeah, I've started opening mine. I just got the, how's it called? Deep Space something?
You got the sci-fi one, Clem, obviously.
Yep, the sci-fi one that I also gifted to my nephew over the Atlantic. And we've been opening one little window after the other, slowly gathering rats and pieces of terrain. And I have to admit, I borderline regret not buying another one to just, open it up and read the rules. But I've been a good boy, and I've just opened one day after another, and waiting for 24th or 25th when I can check the rules. And did you get any of the advent calendar, Chris?
Me, no. I stayed out of it this year. What about you, Gerry?
I got the fantasy one last year, so I skipped that this year, but I've got the sci-fi one. And then I also had to have a quick look at the pair of them for OTT. And I really like the way the sci-fi one's going, simply because it's not restricted to the Barroom Brawl one. The fantasy version is more or less restricted to the size of the advent calendar. So your playing surface is just that map that's on the inside of the calendar. But the sci-fi one is a big old honking hex game, and looks a lot more interesting as far as games go. I like what the stuff in there is from Star Saga, so I've got all of it anyway. So I knew what I was getting into when it was coming. But it's nice that they've got this very different style of game. So it's not just Barroom Brawl fantasy, Barroom Brawl sci-fi. They've gone, we can do something different here.
Yeah, I really was looking forward to the actual game. It's nice to have the surprise every day. You open a small thing, but as you said, it's all stuff that I already have also from Star Saga. And I really like the idea of a small but still very interesting potentially game. I haven't tried it, so I won't oversell it beforehand, but I'm certainly looking forward to it. So yeah, I'm curious what they'll do next year, but so far it's been a fun thing to open the small windows and build up the excitement for when you have everything open and then you can give it a try. Because we have a couple of advent calendars, like one not tabletop related, and so we open one every morning with my wife, and it's like, oh, what did we get? And so that's pretty cool. So yay, advent calendars. I guess
different from chocolate.
It's a fun idea, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I think it's great, especially if you've got kids kicking around. I don't, but I'm a big kid myself, so it amounts to the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. We're all big kids, aren't we, to be fair?
Exactly, it's the best type of kids, the autonomous ones, or sort of autonomous, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm talking too fast. Anyway, what else is happening in the Mantic universe? I think there's Halo Wave 2 coming up, isn't it, in January? But you guys will have to tell me more about it, because I didn't follow. I think they've done a reprint of Wave 1, but also new stuff for Wave 2. Is that right?
Well, the most exciting thing is the Spartan edition, which was the sort of the Kickstarter with all the bells and whistles. So it had the 3D terrain, that sort of thing, and the elites and other bits and pieces that weren't in just the recon set. It's all coming out as a second printing, so if people didn't get involved with Halo right off the bat, then they've got the option to get in there. And then the components within that, so the 3D terrain, the ammo drops and stuff like that, they're all going to be available separately as well. So if the people are just looking to bump up things like the Recon Edition, it's all going to be available separately, all on pre-order at the moment, with a sort of a January, February release, I think. So nice if you didn't get in at the start because you weren't certain, because obviously a lot of people looked at it and went, I don't know what's going to be like Halo-wise. I don't know if it's something that's interests me. It's a different scale as well, so do I want to be grabbing this? And then obviously once people started to get their hands on it, they were going, oh, actually, yeah, that is cracking. I wish I'd grabbed that. So you can sort of upgrade what you already have, or dive in with a bigger set if you didn't do it. And then Gerry, all the individual models is coming as well.
Sorry to interrupt, buddy. This is something that absolutely drives me nuts. It's not just sort of crowdfunding stuff. Companies do this. All gaming companies do this all the time. If I'm sure like me, you're signed up to many different game companies' newsletters. If you check the amount of times they say "don't miss out," those specific words. So crowdfunding, of course, is terrible for this. Is this idea that we are pressuring you into buying this thing, that you have a limited amount of time, and oh my goodness, you're going to regret it if you don't back us. And so I think it's really nice of Mantic that they are coming back afterwards and saying it's okay, if you're on the fence you can still have it. And I think that's a very healthy thing to do. It's not just they're on to the next thing of pressure selling us. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
100%. I mean, even with the likes of the Spartan edition, which was the big all bells, all whistles, if you order it now, you'll get stuff that other people won't get for weeks, months down the line. And then going back and doing a reprint on it because it sold out that quickly. I mean, the people who've already got it, it wasn't exclusive at the time. It wasn't, this is the only way you'll get it. It was very much a case of, if you want this Wave 1, 2, and possibly 2.5/3, then you'll get it all in one go at the start. But if you didn't get it then, Wave 2 still hasn't hit. So if you want to get the Spartan edition at the second printing, you're still going to be getting stuff that hasn't been released yet. Because I don't think the factions or the miniatures within the Spartan edition, they're still not going to be out by the time that second print run gets done, maybe. Or if they do, they'll be out at the same time. So you're just getting a big bundle, which probably has a big saving on it as well. I don't bother looking at the prices because they change that often, or you'll go online and somebody will go, well, I can get it from this website with a 30% discount and 10% off your first order. So if you start looking at prices, somebody will always find some way to tell you you're wrong. But yeah, it's nice to be able to go in.
They sound like great people. Yeah, fantastic. Yes.
Spend your life. Because you guys look at prices?
No. I never look at prices. Never check my bank statement either, because it'll just upset me.
That's very healthy.
I agree.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff coming for Halo, and I really like Dead Zone. I'm not a massive Halo fan. I love the first game. I never played any of the other games, so I'm not going, oh my god, Halo Infinite or whatever it was called is the best thing ever. So I'm not invested in the IP it's based on. But the game is great. The miniatures are really stonking. They will need a pot of water to get them straightened out though, because their bases are a little bit wavy. But it's nice to have the options there and to be able to go in and go, well, you can start doing your list building and stuff, because they've added all of that with the upcoming Wave 2. So you can start tailoring your list rather than just playing certain ways. And, you know, if you want to bring the Master Chef, he's worth 2 regular punters, so you can start doing weird and wacky stuff.
And this seems like a very good time for them to come with Wave 2. Because I imagine, Gerry, these things are all a nightmare, right? If you do it too soon, things will get missed. If you wait too long, people have already forgotten about it and gone on to the next new shiny thing. And it feels like Mantic have really hit the wave with this Wave 2, I think.
Yeah, I think it's key to... You want to keep people interested. And this is something that I often see people complaining about. Why did we not get X, Y, and Z immediately? If you look at things like Dreadball has a very good community for the people who like it, but it's a small community because they dropped, for all intents and purposes, 20-odd teams, 26 teams at one time. And some people got everything and went, I love this game. And other people went, I didn't join the Kickstarter and therefore I missed all these teams coming out at the same time, and then there's been no support. Yeah, and then no support. So either
you bought everything at the Kickstarter, or you're basically not going to go into it.
So I think especially with something like Halo or The Walking Dead, where their IPs, they need to be seen to be doing something over time. Hellboy is an interesting one because it had an initial release, and then it had a very short amount of time afterwards you got something else, and then there really hasn't been anything else since, bar a couple of con exclusive things like I can't remember John Hurt's character, him and Baby Hellboy and Lobster Johnson. So there's really only been 2 releases since, which is a shame because it's a great game, but it hasn't got as much focus on it. I think Halo probably is doing it a bit more sensibly. Here's your initial drop, here's some Spartans, here's the game. And people are going, well, I want X, Y, and Z. And going, well, you'll get them, but you won't get them initially. Some of them will come in Wave 2, and some will come in Wave 3, and then vehicles will come in Wave whenever. But to have the consistent drip of releases lets people know that the game is being supported. And sometimes people, they feel that if there's not a constant release, then the game isn't being supported and isn't worthwhile playing. And so drip feeding people, I think, is probably the best way to do it. To
if you go on, sorry to interrupt you, Gerry. If you go on to the various web forums, you can pretty much find threads saying almost any game is dead, right?
Yes.
You know, people will say it's God tier dead, and people get very, very dramatic, and you know that's not necessarily very helpful.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things. Hopefully they'll just maintain a consistent release. Obviously, it's one of many balls they've got in the air that they have to juggle. So you've got the Warpath and Kings of War universes that need to be sustained as being their sort of core games. But then they also have the IPs, so they have Halo and Worms and Walking Dead. And then if people are look at it and go, well, we haven't got anything for the last 2 months, this game is ... dead. You go, well, is it though? Or is it just that it's on a brief hiatus? So time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy, absolutely. And we've got in the notes here, Vault. Maybe we talk about that in the topic of the month, guys, or we can talk about it here if you strongly.
Just to discuss what's been coming in the Vault. I think we didn't see the November stuff in the previous episode. We've got a bunch of dwarves. Right? In December, we've had a bunch of Forge Fathers. I think we've had the Squid Face Trident Realm guys that I cannot pronounce.
Thul, exactly.
Yes,
Daddy Thul.
Yes. And I think we've seen previews for January as well with a bunch of the Forces of the Abyss, including Sheeps for Armada. And so it's just to review a bit the noteworthy stuff in Vault. I think, is there anything in there that you guys, have that has caught your attention?
Well, not specifically the fact that it's in the Vault, although yes, in January we're going to get a lot of Abyss bits and pieces, and then a massive, I think it's an Enforcer heavy weapon for Firefight, plus the upgrade for the flyer to make it that sort of scanner array.
Right. Yes, you're right.
But the Abyss faction is the Vanguard Abyss, plus the special character for Kings of War. And if people haven't been looking, Mantic started a frontier on My Mini Factory last month, where they've been putting in the Vanguard factions into Frontier. So if you can buy in and get the STLs for the Vanguard factions along with the rules. So Vanguard is being pushed via 3D printing and My Mini Factory's Frontier at the moment, which is fascinating. So that combined with the Vault also offering the Vanguard factions leads me to believe that the rumours of Vanguard's death have been greatly exaggerated.
They've pushed it to My Mini Factory, and it's kind of like as is. Like they've changed very little, from what I understand, which is good. I mean, it did need to be changed unless it's completely reworked, right? So, and that's obviously not the Vanguard V2 that they're doing. It's just making available the V1 that was kind of absent from the website in the past few months. And it's also a good way to get the warbands potentially. And from what I understand, because there was always a bit of a question when you're a Vault subscriber, like, what do I do with a STL campaign? And the official answer is that the warbands will come to the Vault in due time, like over the next 18 months, I think Clive mentioned. And the first of them, Force of the Abyss, is coming in January already. But so I already have, because I backed the Vanguard campaign. I'm not sure if anyone was wondering. I already have the Forces of the Abyss warband, and I printed some of them because I'm making my Forces of the Abyss army for 25. And it's cool stuff. It's interesting to have them on both platforms, but I guess Chris will say, let's keep this discussion for later. So, how is my imitation of Chris? Not great.
You were spot on, buddy. I sound exactly like that, and that was exactly what I was going to say. Perfect. Super. Gerry, do you want anything more to say, or should we move on?
No, that's me. I'm spent.
On that note, dear listener, we will be back after these short messages.
Hey there, I'm Brian.
And I'm Rick.
From Dead Zone, the podcast.
And you're listening to Mantic Universe Podcast.
For everything Mantic under the sun.
This is Max McDougall saying, so much universe, so little time.
So guys, let's talk about our Warpath, Firefight and Dead Zone, and also Halo. Guys, I ran a Halo demo event at Quest Hub. Who would like to know how it went?
Yes, I'm curious about it.
So yeah, it went pretty well.
Tell me more.
Yes.
Would you like to know more?
I would like to know more. So I set up 3 tables. I only needed 2 in the end, but I set 3 tables up side by side on the one big table, if that makes any sense, dear listener, because obviously Halo tables are small. And I put a load of terrain down and was very welcoming. Got a friend to come and join me and play, and then we just sort of lured people in. And I was very proud of myself because I actually thought to schedule it for release day, so that was cool. So the upshot is we now have a local WhatsApp group with a whole 4 people in it for Halo and Dead Zone. No Firefight yet, but it is Halo and Dead Zone. And we've kind of said amongst ourselves we expect to play roughly once a month. So we're not making ridiculous promises that we're suddenly going to be playing these games every single week. Because I'm trying to play Kings of War every week, although it doesn't, life. But so I think we're kind of realistic with it. And yeah, well, people seem to enjoy it. And, I got the core set painted up. And yeah, it went pretty well, guys.
That's how it starts, right? Like having a small group of people who are interested in something and then meeting up kind of regularly, even if regularly means once a month. That's already huge, because then anyone can kind of know, okay, if I want to do this, then at least I know there's a group of people doing it and I can join them on that one day, in the month, or, participate in choosing which day it will be for the next month so that I can be there. So it's great. It's good to hear that things are slowly but surely moving forward.
Thanks, buddy. And it's not... What's interesting is it's not the Kings of War gang. I'm sure I can talk them into playing it, but this is actually a different group. This is new people.
Well, that's why I was going to ask, were they Mantic gamers already, or are they completely virginal for Mantic / wargaming?
So there was one really nice guy who has, to be honest, he's been asking me for a couple of months, I'd say, for a demo of Dead Zone. And due to a series of, just life, really, I've cancelled on him a couple of times. I was actually feeling super guilty about it. So I was very, very happy we could finally do something. So he'd expressed an interest. He owns some Dead Zone models. He'd already bought, I think, was it called the Recon box or something? He bought the first tier box, and he spent probably about 40 minutes looking through my Legendary Edition, or whatever it's called, the fancy one, umming and ahhing about, will I spend the extra money to get the fancier box? And I think in the end he decided he would. And there were two people who absolutely had never heard of Mantic but had heard of Halo, who are now in the WhatsApp group. So I don't know, we probably got about 7 people to give it a go, and of those 7, 4 are now paid up members of the free WhatsApp group.
Happy days. Once they're in, they're never out.
Yes, yes. But Clem's exactly right. Is you just need a small core group of players, even if it's 2 of you, and then from there, as long as that's stable and the other you're both committed, it's the only way is up from there, right? You will attract more people by just being fun and friendly. But having the first person to have is the hardest to get.
Yeah, if you want to have people jump in on, you have to have something for them to jump on, right? So I think a small group, even if it's just you and a buddy playing once a month, well, at least it puts it on the map, right? At the gaming club or at the store. Then you can kind of advertise for it, or like let it be known to any potential interested person. Yes, this is happening, and you can join. So that's good news.
One thing off the back of that, actually, sorry to interrupt you, Clem, and I wanted your opinion on this, quite honestly. So after the event or / during the event, I took photos and I posted them up on the new Halo Fanatics page, whatever it's called, on Facebook. And my post was not approved because I had 3D printed non-Mantic terrain on the boards. But obviously I wanted the boards to look as nice as I could make them, so I used some Mantic terrain and also some third-party terrain. What do you guys think of that decision? Obviously all the models were Mantic. From my perspective, I think it's a little bit of a shame that was prevented from going live. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's their decision. That's sadly, I kind of understand where that comes from, but ultimately I think that'll come and bite them in the butt. So I'm not sure it's the best decisions that they could have made on this topic. I wonder if there's some, like contractual elements from it with whoever the editor of Halo is. I doubt that's the case, because why would they care too much, right?
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Is Mantic Fanatic or the Halo Fanatic page, like the other pages, technically it's a fan group. It's not Mantic's official page. Because
I think that's the case, but I'm not sure. I'm not completely sure. Please tell us, dear listener.
Yeah, because in that case, I'd be going, that's absolute horseshit of the highest caliber. It would be different if you were trying to post onto Mantic's Facebook, because obviously they're going to have certain issues with the IP and with the license where they may not be able to show, it'd be like showing off Star Wars stuff or 40K stuff with a load of 3D printed proxy terrain from another party, which is made to look similar but kind of not it. And you're going, that's grand. I can understand their licensing point of view and everything else, but on the Fanatics groups, they're not run by Mantic. They're run by fans, at which point you're going, well, why is that wrong? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I think it's even from the company perspective, it's a bit. I'm not 100% behind the. Oh no, you can only exclusively have the official stuff. It kind of feels like an overcorrection, and I agree with you. Like if it's on a fan page,
some licenses are so prescriptive that they would lose the license by showing them, depending on the actual license that they've been given. So I can understand if it was the official Mantic one, then they would have to go straight down the line and go, no, you can't, because we'll not just get sued or slapped. We'll lose the license and we won't be able to produce any more, and it'll all go in the bin. So that can be from that perspective,
harsh, Gerry. Obviously, that's a very simple decision. If they allow it to go live, they lose the license. Obviously, that's not a decision. That's just how it has to be. What, Gerry? If theoretically that isn't the case, what do you think of that as a decision?
Oh, it's madness, because showing off the game is the whole point of bringing new people in. And that's why if the Halo version is just another fan group, if it's not being run by Mantic itself, I don't know why they would prohibit it in any way, shape, or form. Because it's not like the miniatures are 3D printed. It's the official miniatures, and then it's just the terrain is being added. So, I mean, it just seems like absolute madness, because that cardboard terrain, with the best one in the world, within 6 months, anybody who's playing regularly will be replacing that cardboard terrain with something else, because it will have fallen apart. Because the best cardboard terrain won't stand up to the rigors of being assembled and disassembled. And even some of the things like the boards, the sort of the blocking pieces, they're not the sturdiest pieces, so they're going to need replaced anyway. So at the moment you have one set of 3D plastic terrain that's official and unobtainable to anybody who didn't buy the Spartan pledge until the Wave 2 ships, the pre-orders that are now up. So anybody who wants anything that isn't flat 2D terrain is going to be a very small number, and stopping somebody from posting, here's people playing the game, or here's a group of new players in my area, and then somebody sees that and thinks, I'm in that area. Oh, I didn't know there was a group doing that. It's just, yeah, I don't like it, because it just constricts the amount of gamers that you actually get.
Yeah, I mean, it's I agree with you. I think it's kind of counterproductive. There could be some reasons, but that's not the best thing, I think, coming with this game. I wonder if it's kind of a zealous approach from the community to defend also the official stance, like, okay, this is not a game where you can play with proxies, also in fan areas. I mean, that's the decision that someone made, not within Mantic, but on the fan page, and questionable. But anyway, I hope it didn't discourage you from playing, like organizing further gaming days and demos and so on.
Oh, not at all, buddy. I mean, I do wonder if maybe someone at Mantic had a word with them and just sort of asked, do you mind if, or we'd appreciate it if, or something like that, Who knows?
Just having a quick look, because obviously I'm not a member of the page, because, like I say, I don't know anything about Halo. But it's the Mantic Games Halo Flashpoint group, no sales posts, no third-party models / terrain. And please be nice, but it's a private group. So yeah, I don't know why. Don't know why they've done it that way, because it's not. There is a public group, which looks like it has that has 100% 3D terrain in it. So yeah, so there's a public group for the UK for Halo Flashpoint, and people are posting whatever they're working on. Whereas the private group that only accepts people who submit,
sign up to the rules,
have limited what you can actually post. That just seems like insanity to me. And if you're in charge of that, you're an idiot. If you've any problems, I'll be over in England in April at Salute. I'm 2 meters tall. You can't miss me.
Very true, Jerry. Very true. Perfect. There we go. Super. We're missing our words as ever. Perfect. Okay, guys. Super. That's good to know. So, Clem, I think you've been playing some Mantic Sci-Fi.
Yeah, I've played a bunch of Firefight, actually, because there are some new players. One in particular who's very motivated. Is doing Vermine and Forge Fathers already. I bought the starter, whatever it's called. And I've been playing a bunch, actually. Not in the past 2 weeks, because life in December is always complicated. But before that, the other thing is I played with the Asterians, and I've fully assembled my Night Stalker as well. I'm making lists for them. I've also worked a bit further on my Marauders. So yeah, I'm really in a firefight mindset these days. Thinking about terrain as well, because I want to slowly build up my terrain collection to play Firefight, because now I'm basically using Dead Zone terrain plus Kings of War terrain, like for the forest and the hills, and some impassable terrain that doesn't look too fantasy. But obviously I want to expand this a little bit, and the end goal would be also to have 4, 5, 6 tables that I can use in parallel and do a bit of a gaming day or tournament or whatever it's called for Firefight, to just support the small local group that is being set up, because there are some other people working on their armies or who already have some Firefight stuff and said they would join whenever we do a gaming day. So
I got to say, Clem, I would be delighted to come up and join. Have you seen what I really like is the whole plastic Mantic forest, sci-fi foresty things? I think they're great. Have you seen those?
You mean the Terrain Crate 3?
Exactly.
Yeah, I have some of those. So I just need to paint them, put them on bases and so on. I find it's always a bit of a question to come up with a theme for it. I would like put some terrain, some pieces, and so on. The good thing is Firefight. No one will stop you from 3D printing your own piece of terrain. And I know you have a bunch of
not yet, Clem,
a bunch of really cool pieces. So I need to take inspiration from your STL selection and print some myself. Because I have been 3D printing also a bunch lately, both my resin printer from the Vault and with the FTM machine that I have access to, some terrain pieces. So yeah,
guys, this is amazing, Clem. I'm looking forward to joining you at your event. Guys, I'll spontaneously put you on the spot. What is the quintessential?
That's planned. So maybe next time you'll come to Berlin in January, right? We'll play some Firefights. So will it be an organized event? Well, maybe not that organized.
To a point.
I'm doing one already Friday next week, so 27th of December, I believe.
Amazing,
and it's again gaming day, like multi-systems, not even just Mantic. It's just people from the local group. Please come over, have a good time. And it's just a community thing. And I will
There is,
definitely
of course,
play
just-
Firefight.
Firefight's a great game. The only thing, of course, I wish is it didn't have command dice. So, guys, moving on. So, spontaneously, guys, what is the quintessential sci-fi terrain piece? I'm going to go first to Gerry.
Hills. Doesn't matter what I'm playing. Hills. I need hills.
Clem.
For completely unrelated reasons, I bought some polystyrene spheres and toothpicks to make, the space cactus, the bright
Time, the old Warhammer. Yeah, ping pong balls with the toothpicks in. The red
For me,
toothpicks.
that was this kind of like a early days sci-fi piece of terrain. So I decided, they are for the wrong game, but that doesn't matter. I can choose, right? And I also have a bunch of cool Terrain Crate 3, like space weird trees from Mantic, but it's fine. I can augment this collection with you. So for me, this piece of terrain is a good place.
I thought I was pretty confident at least one of you was going to say like a sci-fi shipping container, like containers. There's loads of them you can get. Yeah. They're always
kind of a trope at this point
these days. Yeah.
Yeah, every single system has containers of some sort. You're right.
Yeah. There we go.
It depends. And you've said already about working out the best sci-fi board or what you want to set up for a sci-fi board or planet. And that's the hardest part, I think, for anything, is deciding what you're going to put on your table. Because you can theme it when you know what it's going to, if you're going to make Mos Eisley, you go, well, I know I'm going to have more or less empty streets and then big sci-fi Adobe buildings with domed heads on them, or you can make your, let's stay Endor, because it's easy to stay with Star Wars because it's something everybody knows. So big trees and a bunker maybe, or that big AT-AT platform that they use to bring look onto, Defining your table is the harder part. There was a really
find
good
a
set.
theme. I think it's the key element, right? Like to make it look interesting and so that you can have some immersion into your game.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good your terrain pieces are. It's like, do they mean something? Or like, do they have some cohesion?
There was a great set of random tables for Flames of War. So for people unaware, Flames of War is a World War II game at 15 mil, but the scale doesn't matter. And they did random tables for various theatres of the Second World War. So if you were going to play in Eastern Europe or Western Europe or North Africa, they would have terrain tables. And they were just a very simple D6 table, but what you would do is you would divide your table into 6, so 2 foot by 2 foot squares, and you would roll and go, right, what's in this square? And for example, you could get a hill or a river or a wood or a village or whatever it happened to be, but it would be slightly skewed depending on the theatre you were playing in. So maybe you get more hills and flat areas if you were playing Eastern Front, and more villages or towns and roads if you're playing Western Front in Europe, because of the industrialization and the that sort of thing. And it was you would just go down and go, okay, I've rolled hills for this first square, and I'm going to get 3 hills or 2 hills and a ridge or whatever it happens to be. And you would just note down and build your map like that, and then go and dig out the terrain for it. So whenever I used to play Flames of War with a friend, at the end of a game, we would roll for the map for the next game, so we knew what we needed to have available the next time we played. But if you got a river on one square and another one in an adjacent square, you would run the river from there to there, off the table and on the table, so it would come in and then flow across and then go off. But if you maybe only got a river in one particular square, it would just come in like a U-bend, come in and cut off a bit of the table and then disappear again. And doing something like that for sci-fi helps to ease the table build, if that makes sense. You could sit down and go, okay, well, this is going to be an industrial area, so we're going to have a lot of buildings or roads or whatever happens to be, skew it that way, and then have less squares that are empty fields or plains, that sort of thing. So you would go, okay, well, it skews it to more buildings per square or less buildings per square, depending on what you want to do. So I think making up some of those little terrain charts could be quite handy, just to help you get an idea of what way your table is going to be, and then it's just a case of building from there.
To tie this, I think that's great, Gerry. Great idea. I think to tie this into Warpath, Clem, do you want it to be super fancy in the first sphere? Do you want it to be industrial and, one of the further spheres out, somewhere in between? Have you had a sort of an idea of how many buildings you want?
It's more, in the far spheres, it makes it more interesting. It's more the far west, so to speak. But yeah, we've also locally started to write some background, kind of some fluff for a small star system where we will base all of our games for the local group. And the idea is then we have, different biomes, like different planets, and they have different type of installations and different type of things happening there. So you have the good old research lab, like secrets facility somewhere on the pole, and
it never gets old.
Of course, just a classic for a reason. And so with this type of stuff, but then there's also a bit of a question of synchronizing it on a very practical level. Like say, okay, now I've decided I want to build a research center on a penal planet, like a remote area, and it's ice theme. Okay, what do I 3D print? What hobby supplies do I buy? And what pieces do I even build? So that's also always a bit of a... I guess it depends from one person to another, but in my case, I do a lot of prep usually, and then I have to have most of the pieces available, and one day I just go nuts, with the creative juices and energy, and just build the stuff in one afternoon that I've been preparing for 3 months or something. So that's kind of how I paint armies as well. Yeah,
you do, don't you? You kind of procrastinate up to a point, and then something's a flip is switched and you go for it. Have you guys heard of what is now a dead CMON war game called Dark Age?
I have not.
Yes, I have.
It was a skirmish game set on the fictional planet of Ada. So it's Dark Age, but it is a sci-fi game, Clem. And it's basically, there is the most depressing planet you can imagine, which is called Ada. Humans landed on there, but it was in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of I've forgotten what the word is now. It was semi-colonized, but basically the place was kind of, the air was toxic, and it was, they tried to make it breathable, but didn't really. And then at some point, so loads of corporations went there, Clem, and they were doing illegal research. They basically had slaves there. It was like the worst place in the universe. And then there was some sort of catastrophe that happened to humans off-world that we don't really know what it was, but something terrible happened. And anyone who could afford it got in spaceships and left the planet, leaving everyone else. So basically a weird combination of aliens, slaves, drug addicts. It's like the worst people in the world, evil scientists, leaving them all on this planet to fend for themselves. Yeah, exactly. And it's then set in the future for what's happened, when society is completely broken down, or pretty much. So it's to the point where, if you can put on a plaster, you are now the town doctor. It's that kind of level. And it's really cool. It's kind of in the rules. So a guy will have, people have things like metal pipes for weapons and stuff, but some people also have like flamethrowers, except the flamethrower is basically like a super soaker with gasoline in it. And if you roll badly on the dice, you roll a d20, so it's super swingy system. But if you roll a d20 and you get, I think, like a 20 or something, it's called a malfunction, and basically your guy, it all goes terribly, terribly wrong for the person. And it's a really cool sci-fi setting that's, kind of a little bit Mad Max. But it can go in any direction.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned the best sci-fi game ever, Antares, for terrain inspiration, Chris.
Well,
You
I mean,
also haven't
I was
answered your own question.
Yes, obviously Antares is amazing. Yeah, you can do whatever you like with Antares. It's so open ended. You could do crazy time travel stuff if you really wanted. But for me, Antares, I always like foam hills, forests, and sort of quite a nice, with the odd building, I would say.
You have cool solar panel pieces of equipment, and I think the other very typical sci-fi terrain piece for me is like big satellite dishes.
Oh, like,
communication systems, stuff like this. To me, it really sells. Okay, this look more high tech.
But also you could use them as objectives, or they're super useful. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah, I always had an idea to get you to play Dark Age sometime, Clem. But maybe one day.
Sounds interesting.
It is a very cool
next time
game.
I visit. So it's like a skirmish.
Yeah, it's a skirmish game. Yeah, so you probably have 5 to 10 models, something like that. It's very cool. And there's flesh-eating cannibals, but it's also one of those games where the people that consider themselves the goodies, there's some real. It's a very, very cynical game. So there's a load of people who have just announced themselves to be saints because they don't. So there's very few people that can read left, and they've kind of found pages from Good Housekeeping, the Bible, the Quran. Basically they've stitched whatever's left together, and that's a religious text, and lots of people have very cynically declared themselves saints because they know that all the people around are just complete idiots who will likely believe them, and so there's lots of that going on, and the sort of the flesh-eating cannibals were really screwed over by the good guys a long time ago, so there's very few actual goodies in the game, if you know what I mean. That
makes it a better war game, right? It wouldn't be sad if in a war game you act like literally the good guys that have done nothing wrong and aren't even fighters or whatever, and it's just like, I don't know. You want all of the factions to have something bad about them in a way.
I mean, in a way, actually, it surprised me because it's an American game and it feels quite sort of 1980s Margaret Thatcher kind of, that sort of satirical, angry sort of. It's really interesting. Normally in American games, it's a bit more optimistic, but it's cool. But anyway, Clem, have we helped on your question of what kind of terrain should you do for Firefight by talking about many other games?
A little bit. I think what I'm doing still is both designing kind of the sets. Okay, like this will be an ice area because it's on this planet, and I want to have kind of these type of terrain pieces, and then I know what to hunt for or what to build. And the second stage where I actually go and hunt the pieces and print them, or buy some piece of terrain here and there, or dive in my collection and think, okay, this one will fit well with this set, and so now it's officially moving into this other box and it's this terrain set. But to me it's part of the hobby in a way, right? Like people always talk about making miniatures and painting miniatures, but terrain also plays a role for the immersion and to make interesting games.
It plays such an important role because it's telling the story, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Like kind of in relation with the weird 40k second edition Space Cactus, I printed the big Bastion, retro Bastion for a friend, and he actually gave me a demo game using it. And it immediately gives a different impression about the game, right? Because it's not just some miniatures on a random table that doesn't look too nice. There's a big centerpiece that really sets the tone and it's instantly a lot more immersive and interesting. So yeah, that's definitely what I'm looking for. And I think I'll use also this strategy, right? Like to have one kind of centerpiece or one defining piece per terrain set, and then around it you could be a bit more vague or a bit more generic, right? So that's kind of how I approach it.
Clem, I'm really happy you're playing Firefight because it's such a good game, and I feel like we don't give it as much attention as it deserves. So I'm really, really happy. I think my favourite terrain, as in the favourite of the things I own for Firefight, is my... do you remember, Clem, we played up in Berlin probably a couple of years ago now, to be honest, and there was someone had that Game Mat EU kind of post-apocalyptic set of like resin pre-painted terrain. That is so cool. So yeah, I think that's my favourite set. I just love the terrain, the table.
Yeah, it's an excellent piece of terrain. I agree. And to me, see, that's exactly it. It really sets the tone for a board. And of course, you want to have some few things around it. But already just this, it's like, okay, I see what's going on here. And instantly tells stories. Like it gives you ideas for, okay, here's an objective, or here's a scenario that we could play around it. And so the more I think about it, the more I want to, spend a bit of time making terrain and thinking about terrain, not just the miniatures.
Yeah, it sounds really cool, buddy. And I'd be really interested to see what people come up with for the first sphere, because obviously it's, sort of a utopian sci-fi city. But that would be super cool to see a battle on that as well, just as well as it is for sort of horrible industrial places, Yeah,
that's absolutely fair. For me, Dead Zone is the closest thing to it, right? Because I've always thought about Dead Zone like this is like a, maybe not necessarily first sphere, but low rank sphere or high rank sphere.
I completely buy that, GCPS teams or enforcers would be working secretly to, take out an opponent or steal some data or something. I think they're very, very few scruples.
Yeah, no, that's true. That part is true. But and for the terrain sets, I think you could reuse your entry stuff for the first sphere, right? It's kind of this type of almost high sci-fi. At least that's how I imagine it. But yeah.
Yes, that's very true, Clem. Were I of a mind to reuse my Antares stuff, I would. Seriously, listener, play Antares.
Except to play Halo.
Trust me. Yeah. Except to play Halo and then get the pictures taken down from the Facebook group. Absolutely, Clem. Perfect. Gerry, anything to add before we move on?
No, I think that pretty much covers a lot of it. Yeah.
And does it? And actually, guys, this may be jumping down a can of worms, a new can of worms. But it feels like opening a can of worms. But it feels like depending on the game. So some games, like let's say for example, Kings of War, you can get away with having a very generic table. Whereas it feels like if you play, let's say, a Western skirmish game, or I don't know, if Dead Zone, for example, or Judge Dredd, or something like that, it feels like some games can really lean into the theme with their tables and leverage that a lot more than other games. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, you can use it in both ways. You can use your table to define your game, but then the game can also define the table. So you can have your Old West town and have your games in that. But if you take, let's say you took the same two Warpath armies, doesn't matter who, Asterians and GCPS for the sake of argument, and then you play it on 3 different boards. So your first one is a semi-industrial world where you've got large open spaces and then a bit of build up, and in your next game you play it on an inner sphere world where it's dense terrain of massive spires, lots of habitation. Your force on that will play a different way than it did on the last game, because you're having to deal with a different set of terrain elements around you. And likewise, if you're playing Asterians, maybe the fact that they're a bit more maneuverable, they might get a panning on the open fields, but then the next time you play in the dense urban environment, They play very differently because they can make better use of their movement and the line of sight blocking terrain. So I think sometimes people think about changing their armies a lot more, whereas changing the terrain you're playing on and the scenario you're playing will give you a completely different feel for your army.
Yeah, you could say maybe the terrain has impact on what list you bring to it, or you could have, let's say, like a larger force, and you play a smaller point game on a different terrain, and it's like like a squad that was sent there, or like a detachment that was sent to a specific mission in a different planet, or something like this. But I agree with you, like playing around the terrain, like changing the terrain, can give you as much diversity in the games you get to play as if you were changing the army, actually, like playing the same army in a completely different context, even with the same opponent, like same player opponent, the same army opponent, but on a completely different scenario, different terrain set, makes for a different game experience. So it's totally worth it.
I've got to be honest, it's got to the point now where I bring one box, which is my army, to Quest Hub, and then I bring a second box, which is my terrain and mat. And I think some people laugh at me, but it's so important to me now that it just looks nice, and it's not just some random, sort of slightly broken terrain bits off the shelf put down. It's I want to be immersed in the table as much as the armies. So I think it's interesting we're having this conversation now, because I think it's really important. And it's so interesting Gerry made that point, that the terrain affects the game and how the armies plays, and of course it totally does. And you might have a shooty army, which is, on a flat table, they just, shoot their opponents off the board, but maybe they get ambushed in a swamp and they can't see what's coming at them, and they get absolutely decimated. And that's really interesting, narratively, and very good. Super, guys. Do we have anything else to say for Mantic Sci-Fi?
I think we can move on.
We will be back after these short messages.
This is Fred reminding you to visit the Kings of War forum, kowforum.com. No ads, no commercials. That's kowforum.com.
This is Andy from Mantic Games, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. So much universe, so little time.
So guys, Apanathor, Kings of War. Who's played some Kings of War?
I haven't played so much. I'm trying to think about it, but I've been thinking about my Force of the Abyss and also doing some work on them because I'm rebasing everything, as you guys know. But I haven't played. Have you played any games?
So I've played quite a bit of Kings of War since the last episode. So I went, for example, to St. Augustine, where Wolfgang had a sort of getting back into Kings of War event, I would say.
So more like a gaming day than a tournament?
Yes, exactly right, buddy. So it was very casual. So it was 2 games on the same day. So I drove up. It's about an hour and a half for me to go. So it's doable. And I played 2 lovely games of Kings of War, and it was really interesting to see people, because there are a lot of people there. So I think we had 10 players, which, considering that community was pretty much, has been on hiatus for for years, I think 10 was a really good number. But yeah, just seeing people that I haven't seen since COVID. And it's really funny, you see someone that you played in a tournament 4 years ago, and how are you? Oh, I've had 2 kids since you since you last saw me. Okay, cool. Good for you, buddy.
Yeah, well, I didn't know you about before, but yeah.
Like the guy who was so drunk he could barely play against me, but somehow beat me in the game. He's now got 2 kids and is suddenly respectable.
You beat yourself in this game because you were overconfident in getting victory.
I don't even know if it was overconfidence, but it was like, exactly. It was just the yes, it just felt like a done deal, buddy. I still remember that game, my goodness me. But so it was lovely to see people. I played 2 really, really competitive games. The first one was against a lovely player who just says he hates painting and doesn't paint. So unfortunately he has his Forces of Abyss army he's had for many years, and he even has the new models, Clem, but none of it is painted, which is, I've got to be honest, a little bit sad when models are just kind of blue tacked on their bases. I feel like there's got to be a solution there somewhere.
I mean, commission painting is a solution, right?
Like, exactly. Exactly.
One way or another. I mean, it doesn't have to be, because I think commission painting kind of has the reputation of, it's you get stuff done really, really well, and it's a crap ton of money. And I don't think it has to be. I mean, the other alternative is, I'm sure people like you and me with too many armies at some point would be glad to just sell off some of the working army, like an army that we have and is painted, you can play, and just would be happy to just have it keep living a good army life with another player. I know, our friend Marcos is buying Kings of War armies every now and then, or various armies, and so he's been playing with armies that he didn't paint. And not that he doesn't like painting, but it's more like he's keeping an eye on what you can buy. And I think, that's not saying that there's no excuse for unpainted armies. Like, I also dislike the clubs that are like, you cannot have a single unpainted miniature, otherwise we'll just kick you out. It's like, what type of rules is this, right? But at the same time,
but on the other hand, there's a difference between not yet painted and never painted.
No, absolutely.
But anyway, I didn't want to fixate on that aspect. He's a super nice guy, and really, really nice guy. Really good player, but fair player. And we had a lovely game, Clem. So Forces of the Abyss with some of the new stuff with the regen auras and stuff. Yeah, it was a really scary army. I played by Trident Realm. It was 2,000 points rather than 2,300. And it was a brilliant game. It was my ensnarers got flanked and killed. But at pretty much the same time that was happening, I think, are they Low Abyssal Horde, Clem, which is basically his exact mirror unit on his side, was also killed. So we both lost the two things kind of holding our centre, if you know what I mean, and then it was just a mad dash to try and kill things and score points. And I came out with...
How did he kill your... you flanked it with what type of units?
Yeah, so I had holding the flank of the ensnarers, I had a regiment of Gigas, Defence 6. In my full 2,300 points, that is a horde of Gigas. But I just couldn't fit the points in for the lower points game, obviously. So I had to make do with the regiment, and they got charged by some kind of berserker infantry unit that charged in. I just got super, super lucky with the dice. They really spiked, and they did 6 wounds off the first attack when really you'd expect them to do a couple of wounds a turn, at best. So it was a little bit unlucky, but also interesting to see what you can and can't expect of them. And so, it was a really fantastic game, and I just managed to squeak a win, but it was very exciting. It was one of those games where, I think I'm going to win this. Oh no, I've definitely lost this. Oh wait, I think I can win this. It was one of those, it was just back and forth and back and forth. It was really fun. And then for the second round, I challenged Wolfgang to a game. So it'd be lovely just to have a little chat with him and see how he's getting on. And then I think Wolfgang thought, no, I'm not good enough at the game. I have to give Chris a challenge, which is, by the way, dear listener, exactly not what I want. I don't want to be challenged. I want a easy time of it. So I was paired up with Gregor, who's kind of the assistant organizer guy. He's, again, a super, super nice guy. And he brought his dwarves and gave me a really rough time. He was a very, very good player. He knows what he's doing. But Clem, the dwarf, the Imperial dwarf, like war machines and shooting stuff, it's all defense 5. So I had a hindered charge with my Trident King because his shooting, like volley guns and stuff, are horrible. So I had to close the distance. I have almost no shooting in my army. So I charged the one charge I could get off in turn 2 was my Trident King. Charged the volley gun, which is a war machine, trebling his attacks. So, okay, it was a hindered charge. I rolled 30 dice. Defence 5, I did 2 wounds, which was incredibly unlucky, and they got flank charged by some Brockers, which have a ridiculous amount of attacks to start with. He somehow survived that, but died very quickly. But yeah, it was a very good game, but it was one-sided, let's be honest.
Yeah, a lot of shooty dwarfs is pretty hard to... it puts a lot of pressure on you, right? Like the Volley I've played against it, I think it probably is available in Rådia lists.
Right.
I have some PTSD from playing with Marcus and him making very good use of the volley gun. And you have to get closer to it, but then you will shoot you to death when you try. It will
shoot me to death, and then I'm getting Brockers in the flank because I had no choice but to try and charge these guns. And in doing so, the Brockers were going to get me, and because I didn't because I didn't kill it, even though it trebles attacks. Because Defence 5, Clem, it's not to be mucked around with. So I think I should have killed it, but I completely whiffed the dice roll.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, but I mean, he just played super, super well, right? Really good player, and so yeah, won one, lost one. That's roughly where I sit in the world of Kings of War, Clem. So that's not bad, and. Yes, and since the last recording, we've probably had a couple of games couple of nights. Tuesday night's our night for Kings of War. At Quest Hub, it's been really nice. I think we've got to the point now where it's, when you start playing games with people, you're playing the game together because that's the thing you've got in common. But it, like with us, Clem, it very quickly flips into I'm meeting up with my friend and we happen to be playing Kings of War. Do you know what I mean? It's
for some people at least. People you want to play again with. Sure. yeah, people you like spending time with, let's say. So so it's got to the point with a few people now where literally I just think of them as friends, and we also have this hobby in common, which is exactly what you want, right? That's really cool. So we've had some 750 point ambush games on a Tuesday night. And it's, we had 7 people one night. I think last week we had 6. So we're getting pretty good numbers. We've seen a couple of guys playing the old world who are literally, they have their models from when they were kids, and they've been in on Tuesdays, and they've played 2 games of the old world, but they both sit there with both of their books open. And obviously that's the thing they did when they're kids. It's awesome they've got their models from back then. And I have been very friendly with them and said, oh, well, we've played 3 games in the time it's taken you to play half a game. Guys, I know you like the old world, obviously, and, you do you, but maybe you want to come and join us. So who knows? Who knows, buddy? Yeah. I don't want to push too hard, but... One doesn't stop you from doing the other, right?
Yes,
that's the
right,
thing.
absolutely. Good point, buddy.
I'm not telling you to abandon the old world. Please keep playing it or whatever you're trying to do right now. You can
also come and join us as well. Yeah.
Well, you're very welcome to have it a try. I was curious about, in your local group, are people now building armies further than 750, or are people kind of sticking to 750?
Great question. Great question, Clem. So 750 works really, really well on a Tuesday night, which is when we play, because, obviously we're all busy and rushing around. So relatively small games work well. So we have, dear listener, at the end of February, I think it's the 28th, but I'll double check that. We have a gaming day at, or a tournament even. It is actually literally a tournament at Quest Hub. And initially we put down 18 seats, and that sold out, I think, and we didn't even officially announce it, but we sold out within, I think, 2 days, Clem. So we've unofficially increased the number to 24. So we're not going to go more than that for the first one because we're already biting off more than we can chew. But it's going to be a 1-day, 3-game event. But then we hope to finish by something like 6 p.m. And Quest Hub is open till 10, I think, 10:30 at night. So once we wrap up and we will have, awards, and we will have stuff to give out. And we're doing kind of a 2-tier focus. One is for if this is your first army, or if you've started a new army, you're eligible for extra prizes, because we'll do best new player, basically. and I appreciate we're potentially leaving ourselves open to complaints that, but I'm still quite new. But anyway, and we're doing best new painted army, and then we're doing overall best player and overall best painted. Because, we want, it's when you're new to something, it's nice to win something. And I think it will really mean something for people to win a painting award for best new paint. If you're new to this, you have a chance to win something. And I think we're going to let JD decide who wins as the top owner. So pretty excited, to be honest, buddy. And then once the 3 games are over, I think we're going to play some doubles. We'll play some 2300, and then at that point we need to talk about what we do next. I mean, we've got some ideas. One is to do a doubles tournament. One is to obviously do another 750 points ambush tournament, but with kind of like crazier scenarios, more kind of narrative driven. But likely what we'll do is just play 1,250 points or something like that. So give people maybe another 3 months to keep building their armies. So the expectation is, Clem, that we want people to get to the 2,300 point mark. That would be great, and then we'll have the flexibility to play whatever the heck we want. And of course, if 2 players want to play 2,300 point games on a Tuesday night, go for it, guys. And we can play a doubles game of ambush on another table or whatever we want to do. So yes, the expectation is to grow.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think from my perspective, also it's important to still play 750. Because as you said, like for a Tuesday night, like everyone's tired because of work or everything, and 750 goes quite quickly, and you don't have to think as much potentially, and that's still very nice, right? Like it gives you a stress-free Tuesday night.
Totally, and we play against more players. And again, new players who see us for the first time, that seems much more achievable, right? It seems much more doable to get to 750 points on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what my point was, I think it's important to still regularly have 750 events and like gaming sessions, because it still leaves the door open. It's not like, now that we've built a group of, let's say, 10 regulars, it's fine, we just bring up these 10 people to 2,300, and from now on we only play the big boy game. It's like, no, that's absolutely not the point. It's more, I think I was curious to see if they're also interested in, building further the army, or maybe some people are like, yeah, you know what, I'm happy with just this now, and like I don't want to invest more time or money or both in making an army like 3 times as big or something. Or instead of doing this one to 2,300, I want to buy another army and do a second 750 faction.
That's a great point,
with a
Clem.
different faction.
A number of people have already done that, where they've literally bought the models to do 4 or even 5 750 point lists, different lists, which is cool. And to be honest, I'd like a mix of all these things. And people doing second 750 point armies is brilliant, because we're getting more exposure to different army types, right? If you and your friend play Kings of War, it's great. But if I always play Trident Realm, Clem, and you always play Forces of the Abyss, we're having a lovely time, we're going to get better at the game, etc. But we're only seeing a tiny percentage of the armies on offer and the play styles, etc. So it's got to be good and healthy for the game, not just to have new players, but to have existing players try new things. Gerry?
So this month I played Basilians against Dwarves, using one of Steve Hildew and Cybrand's progressive scoring scenarios. So the Portal of Peril, as they call it. It is a progressive scoring game that starts at turn 4. So both sides start with 4 victory points, and from turn 4, if you have a unit with a loot counter over your opponent's halfway line, you can then steal one of their victory points. So you get a kind of a tug of war progressing throughout the game. At the same time, the very center of the board is the Portal of Peril. If somebody holds that, they have the opportunity to steal an additional point, but the unit that does it will take D3 damage. And I like the progressive scoring scenarios because your opponent can absolutely cobble your army in 5 turns, and then the last turn where all the scoring happens, you've got no chance. But with these, it takes the impetus away from alpha striking or hard hitting lists. If you're starting to score early, then your opponent can go ahead and table you on turn 6. But if you've spent 3 turns actually scoring the scenario, the fact that they've tabled you on the last turn might just mean that they could pull it back to a minor loss or a draw. So it was interesting seeing how those games play out. Also, I really enjoyed getting absolutely hammered by free dwarves a lot.
So yeah, the kind of the first question that comes to my mind is that like a good answer to meta. I hate the word, but strong dwarves with their tiny legs. Although we all know in Kings of War, dwarves don't have such short legs, or they're tall enough that they can fit on Brock or whatever the monsters are called. So.
Yeah, they get on a badger.
Yeah.
It depends on the scenario. So this was one of 2 that Steve had posted after a battle report with himself and Sai playing out the Portal of Peril, suggesting that people give this a go. But definitely progressive scoring helps certain armies sort of catch up. Now this one, because you have to be over the halfway line with the unit carrying a loot token, potentially it doesn't help the stunted legged ones a huge amount because they still have to get over there. But if they plow forward and use their new ordered march or use the command dice, then it kind of makes it a bit more a balanced scenario for speedy units. But even the fact that we were both going for this, I got bogged down very early on trying to get past some of his units, which led to me being absolutely hammered in the scenario. But we knew before we hit turn 6, if it had been a regular game where you were just going to score in the last turn, it probably would have been much closer. I wasn't playing the scenario particularly well, and then I bounced off dwarves quite a bit. Even though I'd taken a lot of them off the table, he was still doing all the scoring because my units were sitting at the back doing very little. But it means you just have to think about your game a bit better. You have to think, well, where's the scoring coming from? I need to be over there. Why am I not over there? But it's a lot of fun, even if my Basiline's got
that's what keeps
absolutely panned. Sorry.
That's what keeps the game interesting, right? Like to have good scenarios and good challenges. Like if the only thing you have to do is just kill, it's kind of boring, or it's always a bit of the same. Whereas if you have different scenarios, different objectives, even with the same list, same opponents, then you really have to consider a different thing. Like even for tournaments, if you have a different scoring system and you're really serious about getting a good ranking, it might change your decisions and how you even play because you don't score the same way. But yeah, I find it very interesting. To me, that really is one of the strengths of the games, of the Mantic Games. When I go play other stuff, very often the scenarios are not as interesting. And it's cool to see that there's some innovation still with Kings of War scenarios.
Well, I mean, if you look at Dead Zone, Halo, Firefight, they all have pretty much progressive scoring originally anyway. So you score your victory points every turn, and the scenario will do something to annoy you, like the objective will move after you've scored it. But you're doing it from turn 1, whereas Kings of War seems very static in most of the scenarios are wait until turn 6 or turn 7 and then work out who's won. This way, you don't have to worry about a defense 6 list that is just going to grind you into dust over 5 turns, winning in the last turn. You've got the opportunity with progressive scoring to actually do something on your turn before that happens. So I like the progressive scoring scenarios that they brought in. I think they did it with the first one at Clash last year or just after, and these two that they've got up for playtesting are definitely worth a go if anybody is interested. Steve linked them after playing the game with Sai, so there's a Google Doc with them in there, and you can give them a go and let them know how they've sort of played out for you. Obviously, I think Free Dwarves are overpowered for Portal of Peril, need nerfed, but that's me.
And Gerry, I think what we all dying to know: did you play with the command dice?
No, unfortunately not. Because this one was with a fella in England, so we were playing on Universal Battle, and I haven't worked out how to do command dice on UB yet, because the command dice
you can,
are so
but it's
specific.
a pain. But yeah, it's a pain.
So I'll look at that. I mean, I'm quite happy for whoever I'm playing with on UB to just roll them, and I'll take their word that they've got whatever they've said, because what's the point in rolling and playing a game and then cheating?
Oh God! Imagine where your life would be if you were doing that.
Well, it's a tragic state of affairs, but I wouldn't be at all surprised with a couple of people I know if they would do that. But I'm looking forward to getting the first game in the new year with command dice against Paul, my erstwhile opponent with his goblins. And I'll probably not even bring the Wilt Daddy whenever I play him against the Force of Nature with command dice, because he doesn't like the Wilt Daddy as things are, and if I suddenly start healing points off him, he'll cry.
Is the Wilt Daddy defense 6 though?
Yes.
You can't do the regen one at least, I suppose.
No, that's true. He doesn't need it. He is filth.
To play on UB, I've used it to play both Firefight and Epic Warpath, the playtesting. And so for the command dice, having physical dice that you just roll in front of your computer and just share, okay, this is how much I have. It works reasonably well with good friends that you can trust. And then otherwise, we just, I think I've created like a small piece of text, like a small item with text that you have on the board on UB, and you just roll d6s. So you say, I'm rolling all of my red dice now. I have 4 of them, and then you roll 4 d6, and you say, okay, that means 2 powers. Then, okay, I roll my white dice. I have 2 of them, and therefore I have this amount of power, and just accumulate tokens to count your power. So it's a bit more painful on UB, but you can do it even with a complete stranger. And you just want to keep it straightforward. Just have 3 pools of dice to roll. So say I roll my red, I roll my white, I roll my blue, or potential pro, and that's how many power I have for our command points or whatever they're called for this round. And so, it works. It's not as convenient as if they implemented a different dice, but
UB itself is slightly more constricting than just playing with toy soldiers yourself. You know what it's like. It's easier to actually push toys around the tabletop than it is to nudge or push things around with UB. So having to do it through a couple of dice rolls isn't. It's not the worst in the world. It's easy enough at the end of the day.
Yeah, of course. I mean, to me, it's always it's a good compromise, right? It gives you options to play things that wouldn't be possible otherwise, and so even though it's something slightly different, sometimes a bit worse, it's still enjoyable. I would argue it also has some advantages, because I've had games, some evenings with friends. It's like, we're just a bit too tired, or like we don't really want to travel, and then you play an hour, and then it's like, I have to go do something else, or I have to manage something here with the kids or something, and you can always save the game and pick it up later. UB is not as convenient as playing with miniatures, but it also brings some new possibilities. So we can see, I think also the guy doing it is reasonably open to suggestions and modifications, so maybe we could ask him if it's not too hard. It probably would take him half an hour of coding command dice, right? So who knows?
Yeah, as opposed to the standard dice that he has in there. My biggest win of of the last couple of weeks is my colleague, John, on Tabletop. I wouldn't say badgering him. I wouldn't say annoying him. I wouldn't say poking him with sticks. But I have been.
He might.
He might, but not if he wants to, go into the new year without bruises. But he did crumble. So we'd been talking about Kings of War for a while. He toyed with a 3D printed samurai army. They wanted to use as elves and printed out a load of stuff and then subsequently broke it. Or I don't know. I don't know how ones and zeros work. And we were chatting, and we were talking about stuff in the Weekender show, and he crumbled, and then I got a message from him that he'd ordered the Elite Undead Army, which I don't think they do anymore, alongside the Mega Army and a horde of skeletons. It's like, I guess I'm doing Undead now. I've put together a 2,000 point list. What do you think of the list? And he sent me that. I'm going, well, this is all just tremendous, John. I love all of this.
This is really exciting. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Jerry, you do a good job of... I remember your fairly recent episode, Forces of the Abyss, and you're talking about how lovely the new big resin model is for the Abyss, and you give it some airtime, buddy.
I'll give anything Dexy if I like it. So it doesn't matter what company it comes from. It just happens that Mantic do a lot of stuff that I really like, so that's handy, I feel.
Absolutely.
But the Lord of Lies, the big chunky Lord of Lies model. Yeah, I need that in my life.
Fantastic. And Jerry, have you been working on any Kings of War armies or any Mantic armies recently?
Yes and yes. The two are not the same. So somebody suggested we might be doing some sort of Trident Realm thing at Clash of Kings. So I have a Trident Realm army that I'm mostly putting together based on Cool Mini or Not's Wrath of Kings game. So I have House Hadros in a big way, which were underwater typey things. So I've got the Osrund Cavalry, I think they were called, which are giant octopus. So you can only really fit 3 of them onto a horde base to use them as worm riders. So I've been looking at those again, along with the crabs and all sorts, going, I could do a really interesting Trident Realm army here. Maybe mix it with Kings of War or Mantic's actual models. And then I've also been working on my Northern Alliance, because I dug out all of that recently to discover I've got about 4,500 points sitting on sprues, going, I should probably put these together, shouldn't I? So there's 2 armies currently being tinkered with a view to actually doing something. I had this really nice idea when they released the Shadows in the North. Possibly was that the name of the... Yeah, whatever. It was the Night Stalkers against Northern Alliance. And the idea was the Northern Alliance coming out of the icy fields, muddy snow, everybody covered in gack as they march through the snow, and it starts to melt and churn up and all muddy. And then the Night Stalkers would be on perfectly pristine because they don't really exist. They don't march through the snow.
Cool.
Just
at the very least, they're hovering above it. That sounds just so cool. Pristine.
So that, and I have a Night Stalker army sitting, waiting for me to assemble a load of it as well. And that is, I just want those 2 forces side by side. And you go, well, they're alive. We can tell because they've had to tramp through the snow, and those things not really touching the snow, not even leaving footprints. Don't know what's going on there. Don't want to go near them.
Super cool. So I've talked about it loads, right? But my Northern Alliance and my Trident Realm armies are allies. And so it's super cool you are also doing these 2 armies. And yes, so we have, I forgot to mention actually, last weekend my good friend Daniel came to visit for the weekend, and I talked him into coming to our event at the end of February. And then it's just a short skip and a jump, isn't it, between doing that and having 2,300 points of Trident Realm painted. So he's going to do Trident Realm. He's going to go the Frogs route. I showed him the sprues, so he knows what he's getting into. So at that point, Jerry, we have 4 people for our team, for our Trident Realm team, which is very exciting. So I'm very happy to have you overboard, as we say, and and we'll leverage our good friend Walt in Australia to make us a really cool story. So, but even before the event, we will have we'll have a quest, and we'll be rolling dice to determine things, and we'll be making decisions. It's almost like what happened last year. It was almost like a mini pick your own adventure game. So it was kind of like, okay, guys, do you want to take the sea route or the land route? We all had to pick our starting locations, and mine was the destroyed city that we were supposed to be defending. And then we all had to, right, well, do you want to take path A or path B? And then there were consequences based on what happened. And for example, I had naiads in my army, and I picked the sea route, so there was a storm, but the naiads kept us very safe from the storm. So there was it was just really, really cool. And then obviously at the event, that all ramped up massively. So I think he's still hard at work finalising the document to tell the story of what happened. But I've read some little snippets, and it's just brilliant. It's so good. He's so creative and fun, and it's brilliant. And you're taking what is a very fun weekend of games and just making it 10 times more exciting and interesting and memorable. It's just amazing. Jerry, am I selling this enough?
Oh God, yeah. My biggest problem will be working out an army that will fit in a carry-on.
Right, that is a factor. Yes. I've got something similar. We can take this conversation offline, but it'll work. Yeah. We'll get there.
I'm sure we will. If nothing else, I've looked at the stackable dwarves quite a few times on the Kings of War forum. I really like the stackable dwarves. It's really, really leaning under the flat heads on them. I'm sure there's got to be something similar with Trident Realms.
Yes.
Well, with Trident Realms, it's easy, right? Just make them, they're underwater, so you paint your army, and then you pour resin on top of it. And then you have cubes, right? Like bricks of resin. And then you can just throw them in your carry-on without any... you can throw them at someone if you're angry at them as well. Like it's kind
genius,
of a weapon.
Clem. I absolutely love that.
You just have the brick, and it's clear resin. That's it.
Yeah, I'm loving that idea.
Brilliant. And Clem, you sort of touched on it. How is your rebasing project going for your Abyss?
So I've decided to make them a snow theme. Not at all to come after your guys, but
go for it, buddy. Hey, look, it's a really striking theme. It's really fun to do. It looks great. It's easy to do. Why not? Go for it,
Yeah, and so the trick is, my Forces of the Abyss, they're painted kind of in a fire color rather than a red, like the official color. And so fire and ice will go well together. And the other thing is I'm taking inspiration, or a bit more than this, on my wife's Northern Alliance army. Because she researched quite a bit how to make her multi-bases, and so she started experimenting with it and making snow bases for Northern Alliance, as one does, like it's kind of the typical basing theme for them. And so she came up with a very cool technique to make the multi-bases. And so we've been building more of those, like using the technique she came up with for my rebase army. So we're about halfway through now with making the bases themselves. And I need to, remove the individual bases from the models, maybe touch them up a little bit before, and then I can install them on the new bases. But it's pretty exciting. It's completely new technique with really fancy, really nice looking end results. So the challenge now is to get them ready for March, because we have an event we are going to in March, Chris. I need to get my stuff done before then. So yeah.
This is super exciting. I'll be honest, Clem, the most exciting thing was the Northern Alliance Army is moving forward. So great to hear there's progress on that front, buddy. That's terrific news.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's good also because it means we both like crafting and painting and so on, and so it's good to have a project that we do together because we work on the same thing, and it's interesting, to share the hobby. I mean, she definitely isn't as much into playing games of Kings of War or in general playing games with toy soldiers, but she very much enjoys the crafting aspect of it, and she can also do some involvement with a few games or making an army and so on, and sharing that part is quite nice.
She's not so into it yet, Clem, yet. You haven't quite got to that bit. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a bit scared because she's a very, very smart person and a very good player in a lot of games.
Yeah.
So yeah, the problem if I take her to Clash of Kings at some point is we will not be on the same, part of the board. Like, we'll see. But
no worries, buddy.
I mean, she will be way
You'll
above.
just be proud of her. Yes.
Oh,
She'll
absolutely.
be way above us. Let's be realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so yeah, that's about how far I've gone. I still haven't got the new Berserkers and Snake guys, but I think they might be coming up under the tree, so that's why I didn't buy them myself. Yeah, and so we'll see about that.
Clem, I may have had a small. I can tell you I gave some advice regarding your Christmas present.
I wouldn't be too surprised if you did, and I hope you gave good advice. But thank you.
Big time. So I'm sure you're looking forward to your new elf army, which will be under the tree, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Like good guys is my thing, as you know.
All about the elves and the socks.
Did you say wreck and slaves? Is that is the army that I definitely want?
Absolutely loves
is that
it.
the Kings of War equivalent of a lump of coal in your stocking?
I'd rather have the coal.
Something like that, yeah.
Good times. No, I think it was last episode we were sort of laying into elves and then elf players specifically. So let's really lean into that our anti-elf agenda. Let's make it as well known as possible. Yeah, double down on it. Super guys. Great. Anything else to touch on regarding Kings of War?
I think we're good to move on.
Brilliant. We'll be back after these short messages.
I'm Scott, aka Palette of War. Welcome to Mantic Universe Podcast, and check out my YouTube and Instagram.
This is Ronnie Renton, and you are listening to the Mantic Universe Podcast.
So, guys, we have a listener question.
I think that's Martin, what you get when you miss the recording dates. Oops, sorry.
Exactly.
And then we come back to
people around enough. Yes.
We might have had more listener questions that we could just not find. Like, thank you, Facebook, for being such an awesome platform to organize communities. Sarcasm ended. But anyway, so listener question, no S, for this month.
Yes, so Martin Hawk. Hey, Martin. What do you guys think could be released by Mantic Games in 2025? And I'm going to put myself on mute to let you answer first, guys.
Well, for me, it's I'll go easy with the stuff that we already know and that I'm already very much looking forward to, and it's Epic Warpath. Because the Kickstarter is due for delivery sometime in March, I believe. Initially, at least, they announced it for mid-March, I think. And so as a playtester, I've already seen the rules already and played a few games with it and loved it. So now I'm pretty much looking forward to the first wave coming in. But I hope without too many spoilers. I think I know that some things will come after. Like we've talked earlier, right? Like there's kind of a drawback of releasing everything on Kickstarter, because then if you weren't a part of this wave, then you might feel like you missed out, and then there's not a game for you. Or if you've splurged on a pledge and you have everything you need times 2, then you're a terrible customer because you won't buy anything else coming up. And from what I understand, Mantic is aware of this, and for Epic Warpath there will be more things to come in 25. Obviously there's stuff coming to Firefight as well that might have an impact or might show up also in Epic Warpath. So the Rebs, the Night Stalkers also surprisingly are absent from Epic Warpath for now. So I sure hope we could get some sort of a summer campaign or whatever it is.
Yeah, sorry, Clem, I'll just talk over you a little bit. So I don't have any insider knowledge at all. So this is pure speculation, and Clem hasn't told me anything. But so I literally know nothing, dear listener, as usual. But I think it was very telling, Clem. For example, last month you beautifully explained the plot of the campaign story, and I thought it was very telling. It was the Rebs and the Nameless. They easily could have told that story using a different faction other than the Nameless, so I think it says a lot that was in there. And from my point of view, my expectation and my hope is that they will be in Firefight next year. That would be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. For Firefight, we talk about this. I fully expect Rebs and Nameless. I didn't follow the latest status of the Rebs. There was a kind of a social media challenge to launch the manufacturing of some plastic sprues. I did not check what the latest numbers were, but we were getting pretty close to reaching the goals. So I definitely expect this to happen sometime in 25. And so I would love to see Rebs and Nameless in Firefight. And then probably also in Epic Warpath we could get some new stuff. And I mean, I love weird monsters, so Nameless in Firefight would most likely be something that I'd be getting into. And Rebs is just like giving me another opportunity to expand my monstrous GCPS collection, right? Like there are just GCPS kits with different orientations. So yeah. Gerry, what do you think?
Well, the Rebs, I've been waiting since they teased them. I think that'll be a lot of fun to see. I'll be interested to see where they go with Kings of War, because I thought we were due to get another Kings of War army this year, and then I think the success of Halo and a few other bits and pieces shuffled that. So we never seen our new Kings of War army, did we? We got our Forces of the Abyss, and we got the Trident Realms, and there was supposed to be the third Kings of War army. So that's still up in the air, and I imagine we'll see that next year now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 25 is supposedly also the release of 4th edition, or maybe not 25 directly, but it's definitely the next thing.
It's being touted a lot more than it had been. So yeah, I don't know if we'll see it 25, but
I hope not. Actually, I hope they take a bit longer to do it right.
I think the big thing for 4th will be army lists and command dice. So will they keep the volume of armies that they have? It's an interesting question. A lot of people like the volume of armies there, but it's a lot of work to balance those armies. So if they remove Ratkin slaves, will the 7 people who play Ratkin slaves throw the toys out of the pram and never play a game again? Or Forces of Nature and the Herd, for example? Would it be better to take some of the theme lists back into the main body and then just let people be a bit more free with what they pick for their lists, and then have to balance 17 lists is easier than having to balance 26 or 28 lists? potentially. Obviously, if you've got 17 lists with a ton of options in it, it's probably not as easy anyway. You know, you've got the same volume of permutations to worry about. But I think if it doesn't come in 25, we're almost undoubtedly going to see it in 26. So maybe another year's worth of actual competitive games, whether convention or tournament, using command dice and that sort of thing. They'll have the feedback then, a full year's worth of actual gameplay and results coming about command dice, what people think, how they work, all of that. I don't know if it will definitely be folded into fourth. I wouldn't have a problem with it from what I've seen so far. Other people may.
I guess they will also check, the vault, because from what I understand, they also monitor the lists that people make. And
right.
So I guess if people make lists buying additional command dice or not, that's also an indication of what people do, at home or with their friends and so on. And so
that's interesting.
Yeah, we will see. But I definitely expect probably one release like we had Trident Realm last year, so early spring or something like this. And then it's a big question mark, right? I would expect probably they would work on fourth for the second half of the year and probably not have it ready right away, because everyone has said, it's a bigger thing than just doing another year of Clash of Kings. So I hope they just take their time, because I think everyone's aware that just can't afford to mess it up, right? So
yeah, I think honestly, if we've seen one Kings of War army next year, whether it was a Basilean refresh or whatever happens to be, do one army, do a couple of new plastic kits, a few resins, whatever it happens to be, and then get ready for a big relaunch the following year would make more sense to me. I think dwarves and elves are the two that a lot of people look at and go, those are the armies that they're typical fantasy, and people either love or hate those plastics. They are very much Marmite. But I was showing some people the Vanguard dwarves recently, and then the League of Infamy elves, and they couldn't believe the sculpts. And then you show them the Kings of War versions, and they go, And I think if they can get, or if they get to the potential to do new plastics and push the dwarves and the elves closer to those two sort of themes. So your dwarves look more like the Vanguard stuff, which is stonking, and then the elves look more like what they came up with for League of Infamy, which were absolutely great.
They are great models, yeah.
That was such a weird kind of half release, wasn't it? Because I assumed when we saw that, I just went, oh, okay, Mantic are doing elves next, or soon. And it was so weird they put that work into it and then it didn't go any further. I thought that was really odd.
Well, I mean, the fact they haven't come out yet doesn't mean they're not going to come out.
Right point, Jerry. Yeah.
Sprues are weird. These days they're cheaper. I'm not going to say cheap because you're still looking at like 10,000 for a sprue. But I remember the Space Marine Rhino, for people who remember the initial one of that, and it started out as like 3 for £7 or 3 for $7.99, whatever it was. But that was on the market for about 15 years before they paid the cost of the Rhino sprue off for Games Workshop. Likewise, they've paid for the sprues for the dwarves and the elves. Do you want to retire something that you've never made money on, that you've never even broke even? And I think this is the problem. You've got an investment that you need to go, well, have we seen a return on it? No. They may just have to eventually bite the bullet and go, we won't. The elves, as much as I quite like the elves, I like the fact that they're spindly little weird things, and not massive.
They're actually nice models. Yeah, they're not that bad.
I've seen some great paint jobs on them as well. But some people look at them and then they think of the not even the Tolkien elves or the D&D elves, which are very different, but they think of the GW big 6-foot chunky elves, and they go, well, these aren't elves. And you go, elves aren't meant to be Arnold Schwarzenegger with pointed ears. However, people have that idea in their head, so they avoid them. Likewise, the dwarves, not everybody likes the flat heads on them. So, well, time will tell. But I'm hoping 2025 will bring a nice, shiny new fantasy army. Obviously, I'm deep into Epic Warpath as well, so I'll be getting that by hook or by crook because I backed the Kickstarter. And the other thing is Walking Dead. So I had everything for The Walking Dead whenever they lost the license. They didn't renew the license. They didn't lose it. And then they got it back again and went, well, we're going to continue the story. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go from there, because Walking Dead is a stunning game. This is something, we say this a lot about a lot of games that Mantic do. So Dead Zone, Kings of War, whatever. They're really, really good games. And The Walking Dead as a game system is absolutely superb. And for people who, I'd never read the comics and never seen the TV show, I still haven't seen the TV show, although I subsequently have gone back and read the comics since actually getting involved with The Walking Dead. And I love it to bits, but I just love the mechanics of the game and the tight niche. You're playing on it's not even a 2x2, it's a 20 by 20 inch board. And that is fantastic. And the narrative point of view of that game as well. So if you have read the books, then you can go, I'm going to play through the scenarios. And if you haven't, then you're exploring and learning the story as you play. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go next. There's a few things on the cards for The Walking Dead, which is great. So yeah, their IPs are fascinating as well.
To be honest, yeah, Gerry, I there's stuff going on, I think, with Walking Dead in January. I think it's been teased. I love how the rules and the lore are so entwined in that game, or like the rules and the theme are so cleverly structured. And yeah, I was hoping to get it back on the table maybe in early January and just do a little episode about The Walking Dead. So it's good to know you play it, because maybe I can get you on. We can talk about it together.
God, yeah.
Because it's been a couple of years since I played it, and I had a really good time with it. I think I've probably played about 10 or 12 games in total, but I've always had a fantastic time, and I didn't quite have everything when they lost the license, but near as damn it, to be quite honest with you. So, yeah.
They obviously it was a Kickstarter, and I backed the Kickstarter, and then they decided to do a boot camp with Beasts of War, and I went to that, so I ended up with 2 copies of the Kickstarter version, because you got a copy if you went to the boot camp. And Ronnie was going around the tables, and we were playing. They played through a few games, taught us the rules. You do this, and then there was like, okay, your next game you can do whatever. And Ronnie came round to discover that I had put together a team that was Negan and every child that was in that box as a little cheap group of people that could run around and do stuff, because Negan could just smash one of their heads in with a bat and give somebody else an extra action. And Ronnie looked at him and went, we'll be stopping that when the game comes out, Going, what? We'll put them all they'll be in teams. You won't be able to do this. You're going, okay, Ronnie. And it took about a year and a half, maybe 2 years before they finally got round to that. And up until that point, I just had Negan, and he was like some sort of terrible Fagin with his artful dodger and group of small children. So Sophia would run around and grab stuff, while everybody else got warned that they would get the absolute battering of their life if they didn't steal whatever he needed stole off them. It was good times.
This sounds fantastic. I love how on mistake you've got that much passion out of Ronnie, with your horrible, because you didn't. I guess you didn't even know who Negan was, did you? Who's this? I had
no notion. You just read the rules and you go, and he can do this, and you go, right. Well, if he can do that, he can club somebody to give somebody else an additional action. Who are the cheapest people to bring? Children. great. Fetch me every child that exists.
Nightmare. Dickensian future.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, we'll divide them up into individual gangs or collectives or whatever it was at that point. And yes, they'd added, you had the little symbol on the card and it would tell you whether they were part of this or part of that group or whatever it happened to be. But we never really seen the complete development of what Ronnie had told me at the initial boot camp, that they were going to have X, Y, and Z, until near the very bitter end when they brought the anthology out, and then they brought out Cold Arms.
Whisperers.
No, the actual they brought out like a skirmish game version.
Oh, that's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was in the anthology as well, but not everybody had it. It slightly changed how the game played, but it allowed you to play more of a skirmish gang game than an actual narrative game. But kind of, I wouldn't say fell by the wayside, but it never got the development that the rest of it could have got. So I think 2025, the Walking Dead re-release could be very interesting for people who'd never played, never got into it.
And again, we were talking about tables earlier and sort of post-apocalyptic zombie, you can't, you can just, the sky's the limit, right? You can make some unbelievably cool tables for that.
Oh God, yes. We have a community member whose name I can't remember. I will find out and send you the link though. He did a couple of Walking Dead tables and they were 20 by 20, so it was just the standard size board, but they were all sculpted. So here is this from this particular comic or a set of scenarios or a set of storylines, and he did these absolutely beautiful boards, and not like Herschel's Farm, although obviously you can do Herschel's Farm or you can do the prison, but doing these things where you're going, well, I'll do a couple of roads, some shops, a garage, whatever it happens to be. And you can really go to town on a very simple section of a city or a village or whatever. And if you want to do the narrative side of things, you could go the whole hog and kind of go GTA, where you go, well, here's the map of the city you're in, and plan not your campaign, but go, here's the hospital, here's the prison, here's the gas station, here's the X, Y, or Z, and go, well, here's 6 or 7 boards that I could make. What do I need to make those? And then have them set up. And if you're playing something like Cold Arms, where you've got the gangs trying to take the areas, then you can have these little areas that can be captured and held, and if you hold them, then you've got specific resources that your opponent may not have, and the whole time you're having to do it while dealing with the bitey zombies, the walking, biting terrain elements, as they were often termed, because the zombies themselves are not the issue in The Walking Dead. The other humans are the issue. The zombies.
And that was always the case with Romeo, though, wasn't it? It was always. Yeah. It was always a satire, but it's so good. I mean, one zombie, you're probably not going to have a problem. You have to be very, very unlucky to get bitten, but they ramp up so quickly, don't they? If you're fighting against 3 zombies or 4 zombies, it gets really nasty really quickly. And I've got to be honest, Gerry, what you were just explaining then is pretty much my plan for retirement, where I just want to read the comics and then play the narrative scenarios with the characters from the comics. Just want to play it all out with the proper terrain and do all that. So I don't know when you're retiring, Gerry, but I'll earmark you down for that.
Oh, I look forward to it. My question now is, or my issue, I started painting them in a comic book black and white style. So I went and found the first comic. You've got things like I'm going to call them the scavengers. They may not be the scavengers, but the initial group of figures that Rick runs into, and painted them all in grayscale to match that. And I was thinking this would be a much faster way of me painting my force, just have them all in comic book grey.
And it looks really good as well.
Yeah, but then I've got to do all the terrain. and my maps are in colour.
Of course you do.
And then I seen somebody online had actually photocopied or went to a printer and went, here's the map. I want that printed out again, but in grayscale. I'm thinking, oh, do I need to go the whole hog? Should I just change everything to just grayscale? Or should I just pull my finger out and actually paint them in real colours? And now I don't know. It's terrible, isn't it? First world problems.
And I just love it for terrain, right? Where, I was literally in the little play park with my kids, and I found this abandoned old little, 1950s Americana little truck type thing, farmer's truck. And it's, God knows how long it was in a bush. God knows how long. Obviously, I was trying to retrieve one of my children. God knows how long it had been there, but it's very, very old and rusted. And I was like, this is perfect for The Walking Dead. And I carried this home. And do you remember with the COVID tests? If you guys remember, it used to come with a little biohazard, a small little plastic bag.
Yes.
Yes, I have repurposed those to hold various bits and pieces for my Walking Dead stuff as well, which is, one of the, we don't often talk about the upsides of COVID, but in my world, this was quite a big one. This is
totally
great.
Worth it then, right?
I'm not saying
100%.
Nice baggie for your game.
I'm not saying it balances the two things out, but it is very cool, guys. There's no denying it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on
is.
that. Anytime I don't have to actually stencil, dry brush, or put a decal of a biohazard on something is a winner. So if I can get the government to provide me with those, great. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what else comes for The Walking Dead.
I got really into painting hazard stripes. The yellow and black stripey. I got really into that recently, painting dread models. Yes, very much enjoyed that.
Nice.
They look cool. They immediately make terrain look way cooler, right?
Oh, 100%. Super guys, I think we answered Martin's question. What do we think?
Well,
oh yes.
So what is your expectation for 25, Chris? You kind of touched the question.
Yeah, I think, but for the sci-fi side, I think it would be brilliant for Mantic to have Rebs in Firefight. I think, yes, Rebs they are their own thing and they're interesting. Superficially, they are derivative, but that's super popular. Having the plucky rebels, the Rebel Alliance. It is genuinely more interesting than that when you dig into it, on the Mantic side. But I think if they can make really nice hard plastic Reb models, I know that the challenge was always all the different species. Mantic, as Gerry touched on earlier, if it costs £10,000 to make the mould for a single sprue, if the Rebs need 5 or 6 different sprues, it's obviously a massive investment for Mantic, and they may not see their money back. And I think with the Rebs faction, it's one of the key things is it's different species working together. In the lore and everything, that's one of the key things about them. So if they only put out the Rebs with just humans, I think it might sell, but it isn't really the spirit of what the faction is. If it's not the essence of the faction, if that makes sense, guys. So yes.
Yeah, no, but. For me, it's just they could kind of expand it, right? Like if it lets them reuse some GCPS stuff just with a different scheme or with added bits to customize it, like the same way they've done for Plague, right? Like there's some additional bits that transform a Hornet into a Plague Hornet. They could have something similar to make the GCPS kit become Red stuff.
Potentially, Clem. I'm a little bit anxious. They've done that so much now. Like for example, with the vehicles for Firefight, where they say there's 4 vehicles, but it's not. It's one vehicle with 4 different bits stuck to it. It just makes me a little bit nervous. Yes, I think it's smart to do that to a point, But I think if you do that too much, particularly between the different armies, I think everything starts to look a little bit the same. It looks so unique.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But what I'm saying is, I also don't expect to have the Rebs question solved with one kit or a couple of kits or
yes,
couple of releases.
With one wave of releases.
I would be very happy with the first wave of releases, and it's the Rebs from this planet or whatever, and then we have half a new species, like it's, whatever type of alien that is a strong rebellion in one area of the Warpath universe. And obviously there are some GCPS that's fraternized with them and also join kind of the rebellion there. That could give us both kind of a new species, new faction, but from the perspective of their Rebs. And then later on they could do a similar thing, like they want to bring a different type of alien later, like some specific allies for this kind of established Rebs faction. They can do that down the line, like much later even potentially. And also, yes, the vaults, the plastic sprues are expensive, but they have the vaults, right? Or they could release STLs for some additional things.
This would so if it's so the problem with this idea is that if it's not successful, you've got a load of customers who have bought a quarter of an army that's not going anywhere. So as if the absolute worst comes to the worst and it doesn't wash its face and they don't sell enough, you could then put stuff on the vault and say, hey guys, here you go, thanks for buying our models, you can finish your collection or whatever, have at least a very playable army with the help of the vault and a little bit of resin printing. Yeah, that's a great idea, Clem.
Yeah, I think what I mean is definitely they can bring in some, like a couple of sprues for whichever version of the Rebs that they do, and to give it more diversity than just these 2 sprues or 1 sprue or whatever they do, they can put out some skulls on the vault, and then it's a completely different type of investment. So they would still need to figure out what makes sense to go on a plastic sprue for Rebs. And my suspicion is they already know, because they've already communicated, hey, support the socials and then we'll do the sprue. That tells me they are confident they would know what to put on it, right? So I'm kind of curious about it, but yeah.
I have a question. Have they said what the sprue would be for? Because I remember them talking about Rebs, and obviously it was tied to the campaign, but they haven't explicitly said it was going to be Firefight or Dead Zone, have they? Because it would be much easier to set things for Dead Zone. Because you
I think it is Dead Zone first.
Yeah, and that's a smart way of doing things. You don't have to go, here is a sprue, 5 vehicles, 2 commands, elites, to begin with. And honestly, I don't know if I'd want to see that for the Rebs. I'm not sure. The problem always comes with trying to do everything for everything. The Rebs are not the brown coats from Firefly. They're not a Confederate army opposing the Union. They're meant to be a guerrilla / terrorist organization attempting to take the GCPS down one sort of attack at a time, and that makes sense for Dead Zone. But whenever you go, well, here's an entire army of Rebs attacking enforcers in large scale in a Firefight game, it may not work as well. And I don't know. I'm torn. It's great to have everything for everything, but sometimes I think you just have to go, would they actually line up and run at the opponent like that? And you go, probably not. But
yeah,
would a small group of rebels attempt to infiltrate Mason Labs? Yes. Dead Zone, great. Firefight, maybe not so much. Warpath, probably not. If they've got the potential of having several hundred people, would they put them all on a table, or not a table? Would they put them all on the battlefield at the same time? No, because then they'd get wiped out from that corner of the galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. For me, the more interesting part is...
Sorry, Clem, can I interrupt? Sorry, buddy. I think what they'd have to do is move the story forward, so that the Rebs were having more success, because I think Jerry's absolutely right. And bear in mind, I imagine the Rebs to be absolutely jam-packed full of spies and people whose intentions are extremely murky, if you know what I mean. I think there's lots of corporate people working in them, with them, exploiting them for their own needs. Sorry, Clem, I'll put myself on mute.
No, that's a good point. So I think for me, there are two aspects to this, right? Like there's the gaming aspect. Like I don't need yet another faction that just plays the same as other stuff, right? Like so, for me, I'm interested in seeing maybe different ways to play. I'm talking still about Firefight, right, or Epic Warpath. I bring something kind of different from what we already have. And then on the style of miniatures and on does it make sense to have larger factions? It's true, it's not necessarily the main thing, as at least right now, but it feels like there are tons of cool stories to tell still, and there could be massive uprising in like a remote planet somewhere, or like a big drama even in the first sphere, right? Like some sort of rebellion, because again, rebellion could mean so many different things. So I don't know, like definitely in Dead Zone, it means something very specific, like it is an alliance of various aliens. And maybe that's something we should do in Panilore at some point in the future. Like, what is the actual lore around the Rebs? Because I have to admit, I don't know all the details. But yeah, I still feel like there is potential for all of their games to tell cool stories and have something different from what already exists. And just from that perspective, I find it interesting. Exactly how it works, I don't know. But I still feel it could open up a bunch of cool narratives for Warpath.
Yeah, fantastic, buddy. And I think this is a very, very long answer. I think from the Kings of War perspective, I really think Mantic need a strong Basalian army. I think that needs to be kind of front and centre with their IPs. And I would like to see that very much. But as well, I'd like to see their take on undead or elves, or these kind of armies where Mantic have good models. The undead models are really nice, but they are old, and I'd be really interested to see what Mantic's take in 2025 is on these factions.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I just one thing on this. I agree with you. Like a really strong Basilian release would be nice. When I think more about the releases they've had for Kings of War, some of it gives me the impression that they've been trying to release stuff that doesn't exist at all. Like that there isn't a single thing that you could use to proxy for it. And on one hand, it's interesting because it creates something entirely new. And on the other hand, it's kind of risky because then you end up with potentially a bit weird looking stuff. And so my hope is that for Basilians, they don't try to give us too crazy stuff just for the sake of this is unique, there's only a Mantic model that does this, including for STLs. And so I want to see a boring but really well executed cavalry model from Mantic. And yes, there are 10,000 STLs of human cavalry models on my mini factory. And yes, there are 50, maybe 500 different hard plastic kits of human cavalry. I don't care. I want to see the Mantic one. And I don't need a weird-ass, whatever, never seen before type of kit. I want a boring but very solid Basilian stuff.
Get the basics right, Clem.
Exactly. Like, I don't want the weird stuff
Oathmark players buying Mantic models for their human cavalry or whatever,
Right, exactly. Like, make a really nice model. Like, don't be afraid to just, I make a human cavalry model, but there's so many others, or people will 3D print them. Yes, probably. Like, people will do that, as they've done in the past, but if you have a really good model, they will buy it, right? Like, this it's a simple... This
is a big topic, but I think, from my perspective, I think Mantic should have basically the best of both worlds, in as much as they should have really strong Mantic IPs like Night Stalkers that are pretty unique, But I also think that it is important that kind of Tolkien-style themes are identifiable. Whether it's, if you have someone that loves dwarves or elves, they can see, this is enough like the thing I love that this is the faction I want to play in any game. So I think you can kind of do both things at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree.
Because I know there are a lot of it, and this is a conversation I've had recently with my local friend Alex, but there are a lot of players who will only want to play the Dirty Elves faction. And if they don't see the thing that they kind of relate to, they might not go for it. I mean, for a long time, I didn't jump in on Mantic Warpath stuff. I heard the games were amazing, and then I go online and have a look at the models and go, okay, well, which faction will I go for then? And I look at them, and none of them really spoke to me. And unfortunately, subsequently, I found out a lot of them do speak to me if I get the models in my hands. If I trust the old Mantic photography, less so. So yes, I think it's really, really important that someone who's interested sees, perfect, a holy order of humans. I want to play Basilia. Okay, I know what I'm getting, and I know what I'm ordering, and I've got a good idea of how the army will play on the table. Perfect. Right, guys, shall we? Yes, let's move on from the one question we had that we've been talking about for a very long time, dear listener. So, guys, we will be back after these short messages.
Hey, everybody, this is Mike Rossi, Winged Hussar's second best dwarf author, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast.
I'm Brandon Rossbond of Winged Hussar Publishing. So much universe, so little time.
We're getting to a quick topic of the month, or let's see, with us things are seldom quick. But I think we had another plan for topic of the month, but to be honest, I do think that from looking at the Fanatics pages on Facebook, I do think it's sort of prescient we have a little chat about the Mantic Vault. I think we were all completely blown away by Mantic doing the Vault when it first released, just over a year ago now.
2 years.
Is it 2 years ago now? My goodness me, Clem.
I think it's 2 years.
Is it?
Weirdly, I had this conversation on Friday. It was May 2023, so it's a year and a half since Mantic Vault was launched.
We're right down the middle, Clem. We're
both right, is what you're saying.
We're either both right or both wrong, however you want to see it. It's the glass half full or half empty.
They've announced it 2 years ago, roughly, like in the Christmas stuff. And probably the first month, indeed, is more spring. But yeah. So we're both right. Let's be generous.
Yeah, let's go with that. So all three of us are right. Hooray. So I think, guys, we are three people who have backed it from the beginning, I think it's fair to say, right?
Correct.
Yes. Despite the fact I've never printed anything out my life.
Yeah, I mean, I have only very occasionally asked my friends to print things for me, which works absolutely fine. And for the cost, it works great. There's lots to unpack here, but broadly speaking, guys, in your opinion, is the Mantic Vault what you were expecting it to be when it was first announced 2 years ago?
I can jump in. I mean, to me, it still is reasonably unique because I don't know, Gerry, maybe you know the industry better, but I can't think of another company that has both hard plastics and STLs that basically complement what they release for hard plastics. And I really think it's a winning combination. I love, in particular, what they've done for the Epic Warpath release, where you have your core stuff on plastic sprues. Like, you definitely want a bunch of those. And then for everything else that just doesn't really fit or doesn't really make sense on the plastic sprue, just goes to STLs or resin that you can buy as well, as of course. I think that's really an amazing, product and approach to the hobby, because I don't want to go full 3D printed, and definitely with just hard plastics or cast resin, you're missing out on a few things, like especially in my case where I have my own resin printer and I can decide, hey, I want some more GCPS bits or stuff like this, or some Night Stalkers additions. I just go to my Vault subscription and get some stuff and print them and have them right away. That's amazing. That's unique value, right? So for me, yes, in that part, the Vault is still mission accomplished. There are issues with it, but maybe you guys want to talk about it first. I don't know.
Go for it, Jerry.
Yeah, as far as company producing something similar, the nearest you've got is Wargames Atlantic, and they don't go as far as specifically producing additional parts that you can use with the plastics. The way they have their setup is they produce something as an STL, and all their STLs are made that down the line they could potentially become plastic sprues. So if you happen to get something from Atlantic Digital, and then later on it becomes a plastic set, you could mix and match the pieces then, but they're not specifically done as a accompaniment. They're done as a test bed to test the waters. Will somebody buy World War I Polish troops? Will somebody buy Islamic Caliphate cavalry for the 13th century, whatever it happens to be? And then they go, yes, they do. We'll make it into plastic. So yes, as far as I can see, Mantic are unique in the way they offer their STLs, that they have the resin components, which are available for people who don't do ones and zeros. And if you happen to do 3D printing, then you can pick up two-handed weapons, bows, command sections, whatever it happens to be, and add them to the plastics. And I like that. I like how they've gone. And we've seen a development over the last year and a half, where they went from just going, here's some stuff, to going, well, here's either a theme or a selection that will cross multiple systems. It's a ridiculously cheap buy-in. I'll say that as somebody who, like I say, I back it, but I never printed anything out from it. Being able to pick up a bundle of miniatures every month, and you're going, well, it doesn't contain anything sci-fi this month, or it doesn't contain anything fantasy this month, wasn't a major issue for me, because I was never looking at it as I must print something from every month's delivery. When you look at it now, you're going, well, there is something for everybody now, because they've made it more diverse in what they're supplying. Sorry, Clem.
No, I just wanted to jump in on this. I think at that point, that's kind of my concern, or like my main dissatisfaction with the Vault is I'm not 100% convinced that the subscription model makes sense for the customer. I'm very happy with mine. Like, I print stuff. I have printed stuff from the Vault already to make it worth my money, like 5 times, 10 times at least. I remember from making my Night Stalkers army with 2 hordes of fiends, and I bought the cast resin version of them and assembling those. I can tell you that when I printed the same amount of models for Firefight, it went a lot smoother. So just for that, or like if you're interested in some tools, right, and you can either buy the cast resin version or 3D print them yourself. Like money wise, yeah, you could buy a whole year of subscription and it's still worth it. But somehow the subscription model, I'm not sure if is what makes the most sense, especially because now there's more and more months accumulated and some new people coming in, and so it's not always the easiest. Like, okay, I played this faction, please show me everything that I can buy from you that fits these army that I played and I'm interested in. And I don't know, like, to to me, there's kind of like a presentation issue almost. I'm happy with the content and the selection. Obviously, I paid a cheaper price, like the original supporter from a gold companion to gold subscription, so it's even cheaper for me. But yeah, I think I would be happier if I could very easily see everything for one faction, and if there was a bit more coordination also between the plastic releases and the STL releases.
Yeah,
because
this is one of my major. I've got basically 2 points to make, and this is one of them, Clem, is that when the new releases come, so let's say, Forces of the Abyss and Trident Realm were the two recent ones, right? They were the two poster armies for this Clash of Kings book, and they're going to be the most important in the story this year, and that's really cool. Now, to me, this is the perfect time to jump on one of these armies, right? If I had any interest in doing one of these two, which I very much do, I've got to be confident now is the perfect time. This is the time. This is the moment for me to start this army and buy with confidence. Now, I think I worry if in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, a load of the stuff I'm buying is coming to the vault, and I'm nervous that I'm going to pay a load of money, like with, let's be honest, my Riftforge Orcs, right? I spent a lot of money buying 4 or 5 boxes of Hellstrikers, and that was expensive. And then not too long after that, they came to the vault unexpectedly. So,
that's definitely a feel bad moment, and that's not what you want to give your customers.
It's a feel bad moment, and it plants a seed of doubt in my mind. I mean, I've just done a Mantic Trident Realm army using some of the vault stuff that was already there. And obviously buying a load of new models. If I was doing a new army and I had that thought in the back of my mind, do I really want to commit to this? Because maybe in 3 months, 4 months, I'll be able to get this stuff printed for pence. It shouldn't be like that, right? I shouldn't have these doubts with the vault. It should be either, and the way I'd love it to happen is these two things completely dovetail together so that I'm doing the army, this is the one to go for. I've got some stuff on the vault and I've got some hard plastics, and I'm buying, the army box, I'm buying the ambush boxes or whatever, and complementing that with 3D printed stuff that I'm doing myself or a friend is helping me with. So to me, it's super important that those two things work together. And if Mantic doesn't want to do that because somehow it's more profitable not to, then I would like clarity on what's coming. At least not specifically this model, but I'd like an idea of what's coming to the vault. And sometimes with the Mantic Vaults, it feels like they've just sort of, and it's fine for me, but it feels like they've kind of scraped together some random stuff because they weren't sure what to do. That's the impression I've got with some months where I look at it and go, there's no context to this. What's
I'm not sure how many completely new models we've seen in the vault, right? I think we've seen the what is it called? The Warpath vehicle. Some riders for the vehicle that I think have never been released in cast resin. But my suspicion is they sculpted it and then decided to not release it. It's not like they've consciously said, okay, we're coming up with a new, let's say, plastic frame. This goes on the frame, this goes on the vault, and we release both of them at the same time. And the vault release will support the plastic release. And this is what I would want to see. Like, I don't understand why at release of the new Berserker and the new Snake guys, there aren't vault bits and pieces that make me want to buy more of the plastic sprue.
Exactly, Clem.
That makes no sense to me.
You're exactly right, Clem. And what I'm talking about is not so I buy less models. It's actually to give me more options, and I think people will buy more plastic kits. I think it's empowering and giving the people the confidence to buy more stuff. It's not, I want to do a Mantic army for less than €50. It's, I want to really go out there and be confident I can do it. And I think more people will go along with this if they can be confident that this is definitely the best time to do it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Or the other thing is they could release specific terrain or basing bits like on the vault.
Exactly.
Alongside a new army release.
Exactly.
Anything that makes you want to go on the vault and buy stuff alongside your plastic stuff. So that part is a bit surprising. I think there's also something to be said about the relationship to My Mini Factory. Because they have some stuff on the My Mini Factory store, I believe, and it's just a subset of what is on the vault.
Yeah,
is that right?
It's slowly feeding through. I say slowly feeding through, depending on what it is. So, for example, we talked at the start of the pod about Vanguard. So there's a lot of Vanguard stuff there that isn't in the vault currently. But when you're looking at those, they cost the price of the unit, more or less. So the Hell Strikers for the Reforged Orcs are $30 for the STL. If you back the vault, you're getting that along with, I don't know how many other things came out the month they did the Hell Strikers. Probably some Armada ships and a few other models as well. But you were getting that for like $5. So you're paying, you may not know what you're getting, but you're getting a substantial reduction in price over waiting for them to actually appear individually. I don't know how it works for people subscribing later. I think they said they would get a reduction in the price if they missed a month. But
you can buy the past months for cheaper than if you're not a subscriber at all, I believe. But
but you're still paying more.
Yes, the best deal, like financially speaking, is be a subscriber and be interested in everything Mantic does, right?
That's not even everything Mantic does. I mean, let's say you were only interested in their sci-fi games. Since they've switched things up so that they've tried to do a more broad release every month. This month there is something for the Enforcers. Last month there was Forge Fathers. Month before that, was there anything for sci-fi? No. So...
No, I agree with you. Like, even if you're just interested in one thing, usually it's a good deal to subscribe all along. Yeah. But my point is more this...
are $30 per unit that they released.
Yeah, but it's
and
just
$30,
what it tells me is...
Well, that's over half a year's worth of subscription. So in 6 months, are you likely to print out more than one thing?
Yeah, but still, what it tells me is that their My Mini Factory store sucks, not that the vault is great, right? So
but does it though?
The My Mini Factory store, I think, is not so clear. I think I agree with Chris also, is the main issue that I have at the moment is the lack of clarity. Right?
I don't print a huge amount, so... I say I don't print huge. I don't print any. I literally just backed the vault because I was already getting the companion. I was like, grand, maybe at some point I will do something. But if I'm looking at it as a potential unit for whatever price it is, $5 a month, over the course of 8 months, will I find something that would cost me £40 to buy? So a unit of Hell Strikers, a unit of Halfling Aeronauts, whatever it is. If I can find one thing that's cost that amount, then that's covering over 2/3 of a year.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You just need to find a second
I agree
thing.
with you.
So,
I agree with you on that front. It's just I'll give you another example of the confusion-inducing aspect, to me at least. The Vanguard campaign on My Mini Factory. Or the Dead Zone campaign on My Mini Factory is the same, right? Like I was potentially interested in it. Like I thought, oh, that's great. I'm gonna get the terrain, and then use the STLs and print more custom tables, or I can also print it at smaller size for Epic Warpath. And then I saw the price of the pledge for just the terrain and for stuff that I've already bought through the vault. And I was like, that doesn't feel so good. Might still have been a good idea, but I ended up not backing the Dead Zone campaign, right? The Vanguard one I pledged for because that's Vanguard, and so I'm a Vanguard fanboy anyway. And so I wanted the terrain, and I wanted to see the warbands earlier than wait for them to come on the vault. But somehow it still feels a bit weird to have this type of hesitation, and instead of having stuff work together, they feel like they work kind of against each other. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Have you been spoiled by let's ignore Mantic for the moment. Have you been spoiled by manufacturers who undersell themselves? Because it was $45, so what's that? €45, £40 sterling for all the terrain for Dead Zone as STLs.
I mean, I've been buying other STLs. But I've been buying other STLs from other suppliers. Price-wise, I mean, I've bought a bunch of sets with more stuff for like a third of the price, right? So it's not very cheap. I'm not saying it's bad quality or that it's overpriced, but it's not like an amazing deal necessarily.
But and why does it have to be an amazing deal? And this is the thing. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not saying I don't like 3D printing. I don't like 3D printing because I don't want another hobby. I've already got one. It's Tiny Fighting Men, and the idea of having to work out printing just annoys me. But if you are prepared to print the stuff out and you're paying less than the cost of production for the molds, essentially. I remember Hearst Arts, and some people may know Hearst Arts and some people will not. Hearst Arts did silicon molds where you would have to cast your own bricks or window frames or whatever it happened to be. And Hearst Arts molds were expensive. And 3D printing is more or less the same, where you're going, I want to have a sci-fi building or a fantasy building or whatever. But there's somebody sitting, they work a 9-to-5 job somewhere and they're doing this in their spare time, and they're going, well, if I get £1,000 a year in people buying my STLs, that happy days, so I'll sell it at $1 each. And then a company comes along and goes, well, we already produce these as plastic. If we cut it so cheap, why is anybody going to buy the plastic when they'll buy the STL? So
yeah, but the problem then is, instead of releasing the file they've already done for the plastic molds for the Dead Zone terrain, if the campaign had been new sculpts that complement the plastic sprues that they sell, I would have been over the moon and I would have backed it right away, and I would have thrown more money at them. The problem is now they just recycle assets they already have. And as Chris mentioned, I think it really comes with a backlash, because it would be quite some time before I ever buy like €80 worth of resins on a specialty unit in Kings of War, because I would be too afraid of it coming to the vault at some point and feeling stupid for it. So I think they still haven't really found the perfect strategy where the vaults and overall their STL strategy really supports their other sales. And so I think it's a great idea to begin with, but now there is a few things they need to clarify, at least for me. Maybe for other people it's very clear, but
it's interesting you guys had that conversation, because I also don't think they've worked out what the value is of these things. I don't think they've figured that out. So, it's interesting you were talking about, Gerry saying, well, they shouldn't necessarily, we shouldn't expect to get an amazing deal, right? Mantic should just sell these things at a fair price, and that's where it should be. But I really don't think Mantic know how much they should be pricing things for. Now, in terms of things like my minis factory, as someone who is a subscriber to the Mantic Vault, I have absolutely no problem with Mantic going to a wider audience in my minis factory and selling their STLs that I already have. That's totally fine. What I don't like is, and I feel a little bit weird about, is, for example, the Vanguard campaign was not through the vault. If they were doing this stuff through the vault, by the way, guys, you can pay an extra amount of money to have these Vanguard models. for some reason in my brain, that's fine. But actually, through a third party or a different website, suddenly they're selling other STLs. I'm like, what? Wait, what? But I'm already a member of the Vault. So I thought about the Vanguard, crowdfunding or whatever it was, and I decided I don't want to pay for two different systems for Mantic STLs. And whether that's just a limitation in my own brain that is just me, or whether that's more... I don't want to start paying twice for things, or maybe I'm not even paying twice for things, but that's just sort of weirdly how it kind of feels to me. So that's a little bit strange.
I just wanted to add something as well. I think you're totally right. Sometimes the issue is that they undersell it, right? Like, I feel like I didn't pay enough money for the Fiends, and I feel like people didn't pay enough money for the Hellstrikes model, right? Like, somehow they could have gotten more of it, or it would have felt a bit more fair, like not giving away too much of the value. If
some of it feels like it's almost giving it away, which is unbelievable. But then, because I thought the Vanguard, like $70 or whatever it was, I thought, that sounds like quite a lot of money.
Is it because they're aiming for two different audiences?
I think that may well be part of it, Jerry. Yes,
the Vault is people who know Mantic and want to get a selection of Mantic models at a cost. Let's say it's for cost. It's probably below cost, but whatever. However, the Mantic Games on the frontier for My Mini Factory, these are people who don't know Dead Zone, don't know Vanguard, never played it, don't know what any of these models are. However, they're being offered the opportunity to get their hands on a full game and 4 or 5 factions for £70. And you're going, okay, fantastic. And then the Vault subscribers are looking at it going, well, we don't have these. And then, or maybe, well, they've announced that Abyssals will be January, so I imagine some of the other Vanguard forces will creep in the next few months. But they're using My Mini Factory to promote Mantic, and people are paying more there. They know what they're getting in advance, but that's because they're trying to encourage people into Mantic Games, whereas the same people on My Mini Factory won't be looking for the Mantic Vault because they don't know who Mantic are. They don't know they exist.
I mean, I understand that's the expectation or the hope, but out of the 168 backers as of right now of the Vanguard My Mini Factory campaign, how many do we bet never heard of Mantic or never bought anything from Mantic before? Like, my own guess, and I hope I'm wrong, but my own guess is that it's a minority of them. And so, yes, I understand the impulse, but I'm not sure they really deliver this. Because I will tell you very bluntly what my friends who are not necessarily Mantic people, but are more 3D printing people, what they think of this campaign is like, that's about 10% of what I could get on another campaign, and I don't care about the rules. I'm a 3D printing model, guys. And so the problem is the very good asset that they have is the rule sets, and so selling STLs is not necessarily how you bring people to the rule set, or not that easily, at least, sadly. Because from a purely 3D printing perspective, it isn't that good of a deal. So I don't know. I understand the approach, and I think it's an interesting thought. The realization, and does it actually work? That part I'm a bit more suspicious about.
And guys, I'm just going to move the conversation on to another topic. Now, it's a little bit weird to talk about this, but I think we ought to, because I do think it's a factor, is that so I haven't had any kind of disagreements with fate on social media with anyone, but I, as an observer, let's say, I have seen that on the Facebook group, people ask very straightforward questions about, they ask Mantic employees about the Vault and what's coming, and, very, 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 just gentle questions. And there does seem to be, unfortunately, some level of antipathy, I would say, between some people at Mantic and the community, which I think is extremely unfortunate. and I don't think it's helping anyone, to be quite honest with you. And I know Gerry stays off of Facebook because he's a very wise man. But you do see some pretty weird and completely unnecessary sort of PR own goals, I think, where the conversations have just gone south for very little reason. And I think there should be a bit of a reboot from Mantic from this perspective as well. I think communication is really, really important with something like this. And I think
wonder if they have a single person doing their social media and that sort of thing. Is there one person doing it, or is there a few people chipping in?
I'd say there's a key person, I would say, and I'm sure. So I would not be a good person to have this job because I think I'm polite I'm very polite and friendly, but I think I would be worn down in the weeks and months by
it's
just
a very
dealing
tough
with
job.
The general public. Yes, I think it's strange.
I don't think anyone wants to do it. But to answer your question, Gerry, from what I understand, there isn't really one person that is in charge of social medias at Mantic. Like whenever they do like a Kickstarter campaign or the My Mini Factory campaigns, there are obviously people in charge of it and answer questions around it, but it's not always the same people doing it. And for like questions around the vault or around some other releases, it's different employees, from what I understand, that just jump in. And obviously there are like the official accounts, so you never really know who is the person writing when it's Mantic Games. But it's a bit more distributed.
The thing I'm talking about, Gerry, it's quite clear which individuals I'm referring to. Or have issues, if that makes sense.
Yep, because that's your biggest issue, because that is a massive own goal. And if you've got one person answering, then you've got one person you can go back to and go, what the hell were you thinking when you said this? And then give them a toe up the backside. But yeah, the thing about customer service is it only takes one comment to undo years worth of goodwill. And it could just be, somebody going, why have you done such and such? Or I bought these last month and now they're here. Like, for example, the vault. I bought these last month for £40, £50, whatever it is. And now they're here in the vault for £5. If I'd known, I wouldn't have bought them. I would have waited. And then somebody responds with, well, or whatever, And then that just gets everybody's heckles up. And one response, it's like a pebble in a pond.
There is no
just
good
ripples.
answer.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one. I don't, because at the moment you get 2 weeks notice, maybe a week's notice about what's coming up in the vault.
Roughly a week.
And it could just be a case that because they are still a relatively small team. I mean, they don't have a set of dedicated sculptors who only work for Mantic. Most of the sculptors are contracted in, which means you can't be sitting and going, I need you to make this for me this month, and then next month you're going to do this, next month you're going to do that.
I think you're right,
having to pick people out.
But Mantic will have a good idea for 6 to 9 months out from now what's already been done, right? Because they're not working for what's releasing tomorrow, right? So I'm not expecting them to be able to show us, the renders for the sculpts, but just maybe tell us, hey, in March, Basilian stuff's coming. Or do you know what I mean? Just give us an idea so that as a hobbyist, and I'm planning on doing a Basilian army, let's say, as an example. I know that, okay, the next 6 months, there's nothing coming to the vault. I'm going to do my army now. I've got a clear shot at it. Because I can use that information to avoid field bads, if that makes sense.
I think, so my understanding is that one big reason why the vault even exists is that because some employees internally have pushed for it because they are strong believers in 3D printing and wanted to experiment with it, and Ronnie is crazy enough to just jump in and experiment with it. But I think, they need to integrate this tool that the Vault and releasing STLs is to their overall release schedule. And to me, it would be perfectly acceptable if they said, this model we may release as STL someday, or it's already available, it's here. And it's already, you can see it on the web shop, right? Like if you go on the Mantic web shop, anything that has a STL available, it will show on the web shop. But the problem is for stuff that might have it in the future. So maybe they could say, this thing we will not release as STL ever, and just stick to it. And then I can buy this cast model without the feel bad risk 3, 6, 12 months later when it comes out in the Vault. Or on the other way around, like this thing might come as STL later. So if I want it right away, I can buy the cast model now, or I can buy it on the more expensive My Mini Factory platform. And then later on, maybe it will show up in the Vault. That could be a fair variant of it, right? Like you want it right away, well, you can pay a bit more for it. Or if you're a loyal customer that has been subscribing to the Vault, months after months, then someday you'll get a good surprise and receive this unit or this model on your library. So, yeah, I think overall my point is really I want them to embrace the Vault further and keep developing it and really integrate it as well as they can into their release and really see it as a tool. And not just, every month just go through their existing catalog and decide, okay, this, and this, that will make a worthwhile pack and we'll just release this month. Yes, that would be my hope for the future.
Yeah, fantastic, guys. Yes, sorry to end the year on a kind of a moany topic, because I think we are all big fans of the Vault. There are things about it which, as I think Clem mentioned at some point, feels like they're kind of working against themselves. And I think that's absolutely right. And I don't think it would take a massive amount to really make this into the asset we know it can be for Mantic. But I think it just needs a little bit more communication, a bit more thought put into it. But I still think it can be absolutely brilliant. And thanks, guys. And yes, we have
one detail is I will not cancel my Vault subscription anytime soon. Like I'm a strong believer in the concept behind it, and I strongly, support it and hope that Mantic will keep developing it. So yeah, you said it's a bit sour end of the year. It's more, there are a few things that we think can be done better, but it comes from a good place. That's just
100%, buddy. Absolutely right. And if there's one thing about Mantic is that they're not proud. If they and I mean that in a good way. Sorry, if they put something out and it's not quite right, they will get. I have confidence in them that they will get it right, and they do listen, and they are paying attention. And sometimes that works against them because, let's be honest, particularly on the Facebook group, it's not always well thought out, well structured arguments. Sometimes it's all caps, angry stuff, and so Mantic picking between the good the helpful feedback and the less helpful feedback is, bless them. Thank you very much for doing it. Guys, so it's nearly the end of the year. What can we say? It's been another year of making MUP. Gerry, thank you so much for joining us this year. It's just magical having you on, buddy. You're so knowledgeable and you're just such a lovely person to talk to. So it's just
that's because I'm mostly hammered.
Delight. Say again, Gerry.
That's because I'm mostly hammered.
Mostly, but that's fine. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it works very much. So thank you so much.
It definitely does. I mean, it's great to have a star joining us, and also it's always a pleasure to have discussions with someone whose love for Mantic stuff is visible. Like everyone can hear that you love the stuff the same way as we do, and that's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Absolutely, Joe. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Blush now.
Yes, it's weird to hear nice things said about me. And Clem, thank you so much for joining me for another year, buddy.
One more, and I'll try to be better with timing. It's always a bit difficult at the end of year and so on. But yeah, it's always really nice to have good friends to talk about the stuff we love and share it with the listeners. And it's always good to see people joining and participate. And it's been basically going way further than I was expecting when we first started this, to be honest, but in a good way.
This is going to be my next point, Clem, is just at time of recording, we've got 82 episodes out, which Clem, I thought we would make them up for 6 months, have a lovely time, maybe 30 people would listen to it, and then we would get bored and go off and do something else. So I think it's extraordinary we're still here. And as I said at the top of the show, dear listener, if you're listening to this and you think you'd like to get involved, please do. Whether it's Kings of War, Walking Dead, Armada, whatever it might be, just get in touch, and we'll help you to help us and make some nice content. And if you like to do it, come back and do it again. And that's just, MUP is all about just dive in and enjoy yourself, and just be passionate about what you do. That's it. Super, guys. It's it's another late one, but lovely talking at the end of the year and having this chance just to wrap up. I think next month we should do a MUP monthly on a little bit on the year just gone, but mostly with a focus on our plans for 2025. Gosh, 2025. Can you imagine that, guys? This is scary
already,
stuff.
Right? Yeah, that means we have to think about stuff.
Oh, Clem, come on. Don't say things like that, honestly. Guys, thank you so much, and thank you again, of course, dear listener. And yes, we wish you all a happy Christmas and happy New Year, everybody.